brings a tear to my eye. In fact, it brings a tear to both eyes. Very, very emotional. And it brings an even greater sadness to know that I will never be able to hear the private sessions that you and Jake, you Clark, will be having in the future. I felt it always a privilege to listen to two great minds discussing topical issues that were 5 years out of date. Danny West for 25. 2 hours ago, Trailer, 10 years my time. Kenny Nail about third ground. And I would not agree. It's only just finished. And say, while you mean the chat, it was literally presented to have concerns for all the free speech. I would like to congratulate myself on the wonderful and brilliant comments I made in this live stream. Enjoy, enjoy! Danny went 425. Yes, give yourself a big pat on the back. I have
the semi-pros to the pros, you know what I'm saying? Like, the profitable zone on a regular basis. A man's learning kind of quick still, and it's easier when you've got, we'll say, like mentors or instructors that have a clear plan on the things that need to be done to reach the level of at least the semi-pros to the pros, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Yeah, man, so yeah, so that's why I've been streaming for a bit, man, because I was doing both, right? I was learning and streaming, and the streaming side of it was taking up too much time. Plus, I've taken some advice that I need to, well, from the group, like, saying that it's like in this trading thing, you need to be around positive energy in it. Like, so when you're training and that, you've got to try and surround yourself with like positive energy and all that sort of shit. Yeah? I don't really even believe in that shit anyway, yeah. But I was like, alright, well, let me at least fucking try. Yeah, and then an open university course still on how to be a lefty. Yeah, how to be a lefty. Yeah.
What's the most common cause for death?
Blood clots. We're seeing loads of people with unnatural blood clots, like white calamari inside them. The coroners won't talk about it. They just don't want to talk about it. Heart attacks, strokes, cancers. They're not cancers. It's these white clots inside them.
And what do you think they are?
I think it's a result of COVID vaccines. And it's been well documented by people far cleverer than me. And I've been shouting about it for years. But people just don't seem to want to acknowledge it. Mostly people like the coroners, most doctors, government ministers, they won't talk about it. They don't want to know. I've even been to the police station. They don't want to know. They won't even talk to me about it.
And what do these clots look like?
I've got some here if you want to see them.
Yeah, yeah, go for it. Wow. So all of these sort of calamari-looking clots, you've taken them out of people's circulation system.
So there are two types of death. We've got an expected death, where there's no need for a post-mortem, and then we've got an unexpected death. Early on, we were finding them in post-mortem cases. So the way that works is we had a young lad of 30 in, and he died suddenly, and the family asked us to embalm him. Now, because he'd had a post-mortem, he'd been opened up and chopped about, and then they put all the bits back in and they sew him up. So obviously his circulatory system has been compromised, and when we embalm someone, we use the circulatory system. So the way that works is on a straight case, someone that hasn't had a postmortem, we call it a straight case, is they make an incision there on the carotid artery, and then we've got an L-shaped nozzle that we pop down the artery, we tie it off with twine, and they pump formaldehyde around the body using that circulatory system, that artery network, and it goes everywhere. And the idea is to get formaldehyde all around your body, and there's a couple of purposes. One is the fluid is pink, so it adds colour back to someone. And number two is it preserves them. It's got like preservative properties, formaldehyde. So it stops the deterioration in the body, stops nature taking its course, and it presents people better. Now, if someone's been chopped about after a post-mortem, clearly you can't do that, because if you picture it, you connect there, it would leak out everywhere where they took all their organs out and put them back in. Because every organ has arteries feeding it and a venous supply, like veins returning. And so this particular young lad, we undid the stitches, we took the organs out, and then you have to manually target all the severed arteries inside the body cavity. And you can see them, and to picture them, it's like cut straws. You know, like you get a McDonald's straw, imagine that cut sitting inside your body in the top of your leg. You can see that's the femoral artery. So you target that, and then you tie the pump to it, you pump fluid down it, and he would move the leg about to get the fluid moving, and you would see his toes go pink as the fluid reached the bottom of the toes. So then you could stop, knowing that the full limb was embalmed, and you go to the next limb. And this lad, when we tried to do this, his femoral artery was blocked. So my embalmer, and he's BIE certified, he's done 24 years, I think now, got the tweezers and pulled this obstruction out to be able to get the pump in. And he's pulled and pulled and pulled, and he's pulled out a clot the entire length of this guy's leg. And I've never ever seen, I mean, I worked for the coroner for 7 years. I've never seen anything like it in anyone before. He's done 20 odd years. He's never seen anything like it before. And we're finding this now constantly inside people that have all been COVID vaccinated. So that's what we're seeing. So I reached out to my local coroner and kind of said, look, I'm really concerned. You know, we've got a young lad of 30 in. We've pulled out about half a pound of this crap out of him. I know you've post-mortemed him. What is it? You know, what is it? We've never seen it before. Do you need samples? Have you got samples? How can we help? You know, no reply at all, firstly, by the email. And I emailed because I wanted a paper trail, because I knew then what was happening. I took a phone call about 4 days later. It was from one of the girls in the office who doesn't work with bodies. They're in the office. And she said, well, we spoke to the pathologist. He said, don't worry. You can dispose of them. It's perfectly natural. It grows post-mortem. So what that means is basically they're saying that when you die, rubber grows throughout your arteries all of a sudden. And it's perfectly normal. Well, I can tell you, having done this job for 18 years, 7 years picking up bits out the road, that isn't normal. That isn't normal. And it's only, and every one of these people was COVID vaccinated. How do I know? Because I meet the family at the point of arrangement and I ask them, I say, was mum COVID vaccinated? And they say, yes. And they tell me. And because the government made such a big thing about you must be vaccinated. If you don't, you're selfish, you're dangerous, you can't work, you can't travel. You're killing people if you don't. People are only too forthcoming then to tell you their vaccine status. And they did get good coverage. A lot of people were vaccinated. These are the people that are dying.
Can I pick one of these up?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah. No, they're sealed. They're formaldehyde.
I'm just. It's not disrespectful, is it?
No, not at all. This is clinical waste. But these are not normal clots. Usually it's red jelly clots. These are not normal.
And they are like calamari.
Yeah, and they're very rubbery in texture. I wouldn't advise that you get one out and hold it, obviously, but they're very rubbery in texture. They're very tough. And it's very interesting because if you do a search for the drug heparin, that's a blood thinning thing that they use in hospitals to thin blood. And it won't have any effect on this because this is totally different pathology. And John Campbell talked about this extensively with myself and Major Tom Haviland.
I mean, some are really thick.
So this reflects in the size of the vessels that it's growing in. The bigger the vessel, the bigger it's got to grow to block it.
Right.
So the smaller ones are from smaller vessels.
So these clots will keep growing until it fills the space.
Yeah, and then you have a heart attack and die. Right. Or you're diagnosed, or you're short of breath, and you go and he says, oh, you've got stage 4 lung cancer. And it isn't that. It's these growing inside your lungs.
After seeing that, what was it like being a funeral director during the pandemic?
So initially, I was very frightened. You know, I'm an ex-smoker, I'm asthmatic. I was, you know, in my 50s, early 50s. was frightened. And here we're told, I mean, I first learned about COVID from, I had a family come to see me who had lost someone in the neighbouring borough of Northampton, at Northampton General Hospital. And we serve kind of 30-mile radius, sometimes do Bedford. And they complained that the hospital wouldn't let them see their loved one, which was unusual. So the way that works is wherever there's a mortuary in a hospital, people die on the ward, they take them down to the ward. And then if you contact the bereavement department, they'll arrange for you to be able to do a viewing. So you can go down and they'll lay them out and you can see them at rest, you know, and they don't make much effort. But, you know, you can see mum at peace, if you like, whereas she might have been thrashing about and suffering on the ward prior to death. And it's helped some people. But this family said they requested a viewing, they wouldn't let them have it. So I said, well, don't worry. I said, I'll go to Northampton quickly, because I always do. The next day I went to Northampton, picked this person up. I believe it was a woman. But this was first week of December 2019, right? So, and I happened to mention while I was there, because you get to know the staff, you know. And I said, well, the family said you wouldn't do a viewing. Why? Why is that? And I thought perhaps they were having the room done out or refurbishment or, you know, and he opened the door. He didn't say anything. He just opened the viewing room door. And there was a inflatable pandemic tent in there, filling up most of the room. And it was like a kid's bouncy castle, but with loads of pigeonholes in it that are obviously for bodies. And I knew what it was. I had an idea what it was because I'm in the industry. And I kind of said, what's that for? And he said, oh, we've been told there's something really horrible coming. And he didn't mention the word COVID, but he said, we've been told there's something really horrible coming. And that was when I first knew there was something coming. So what do? I kind of went away and I was like, fuck. Okay, because I'd never known anything like that before. You know, they don't spend money they ain't got to spend. So I rang my mum and I rang my brother and kind of said, well, I've been told this is coming. And then in January, the news broke and we were shown pictures of people falling over in China in the streets, dying in the streets. And they made real effort to tell us how terrible it was, and it attacked the lungs and it was a respiratory thing. And I was really frightened. And the first kind of 12, 16 weeks, I believed it. But then I gradually saw through what I knew was a lie. And that was what started me down the road to realizing what was going on. And I think the first thing was, when I cast my mind back, like when I came here, we sat here and, you know, you didn't tell me any question you were going to ask me. We had a chat and a coffee. You didn't brief me on what you were going to say and what answers you wanted. You know, it's kind of flowed naturally, I feel. Well, I had a phone call from the BBC. I had a woman and a bloke cameraman turn up at the funeral home. And they said, we want to talk to you about COVID and the precautions you're taking. And I was happy to do that, you know, because you think you're helping. And we was told there was a COVID and I believed it. And this couple sat down and they spent about 40 minutes briefing me on every aspect of what they were going to ask me. And I'd never done an interview before. So you go with the flow. If they're telling you to do that and that's what they want, that's what you do. And I bitterly regret it now because all I did was promote their garbage. They made me sit there in like a mask. And I remember at the time being a bit pissed off because I'd bought a mask to keep myself safe and everyone was buying PPE and we were struggling to get it because everyone was panicking. And so we were most at risk. And here I am fucking wasting a glove and an apron for a photo shoot thing, you know, but that was what they wanted. And, you know, I was trying to tell people, you know, make sure you're careful. Yeah, there is a COVID. And that's what we was told. And then in about March, April time, I took a phone call from a guy, John, and this was when it really started falling apart. So the first thing was there were no more deaths than normal. It was a regular death rate, but we were picking up people they'd labelled as COVID, but no more of them than normal. So the numbers weren't any different. And then I took a phone call from this guy called John, and he said to me, hi, my name's John. He said, I'm working for a government-sponsored company. So one of the government ministers had this company that he'd set up, like they did with the PPE and everything else, and it was called Pandemic Resilience. And his job was to ring round, he explained himself, he said, my job is to ring round all of the funeral directors as part of the pandemic response. And I was like, okay, what do you need to know? You know, and he said, I need to know what your capacity is, first of all, how many you can hold. And I told him, and he said, I need to know who you've picked up, where from, and how many are COVID. Every week, I'm going to ring on a Monday, he said. Every Monday, I'm going to ring you. And I was like, fine. And I would give him that info, and he'd ring up every Monday. And almost straight away, he started steering me. By that, I mean, I would say, because I knew that he would ring, I was trying to find out the information to give it to him. So normally I would liaise with the family. I wouldn't ask any questions about COVID or anything like that, because that was pre-COVID. But I was finding out who was COVID, who weren't. Was there a doctor present? Was there a test done? You know, and the circumstances, because I knew this guy would ring on a Monday, and then I could reel off to him. Well, I've picked up Jimmy and Tom and the things about it. So this was at a time when the doctors had stopped attending deaths. And we was told that was to protect the NHS, weren't we? And all the doctors were sitting at home with an headset on, working down the phone for a COVID payment on double money. So they were quite happy to do that, you know. And this guy started steering me straight away, and I would say to him, right, I picked up a guy from Kent's Care Home, right, and I think it's got 90 beds in this particular care home. And I said he'd been there 5 years. I've liaised with the staff at the point of collection. They told me he was an onset dementia patient. He'd been there 5 years. I then met the family on the Monday, and they confirmed he was there 5 years. He had onset dementia. There was no doctor in attendance. There was no COVID test done. He wasn't COVID. And straight away, he would insist he had to put him down as a COVID death. And I was like, what do you mean, John? I've just told you. And I remember it got my back up a little bit, because here we are trying to make a pandemic response, and he's fucking the figures. He's lying. And I'm telling him, and I've made the effort, and I'm frightened, and I'm telling him the truth, and he's not listening. And he's openly admitting he's going to put it down as a COVID death. And I said, well, why? And he said to me, they've been told that in this 90-bed care home, there was one positive test for COVID. And that person then went on to die. Didn't die from COVID, just gave a positive test. So they were under instruction that everyone from that day onwards was to be put as a COVID death, regardless of what they died from. And I remember sitting there and thinking, you're having a fucking laugh. What's the point in that? And this went on throughout 2020, everyone they possibly could. And they were paying out big money for every time COVID went on a death certificate. They were getting thousands of pounds, the hospital. So what do you think went on every death certificate? COVID. I had families that were told they would get money towards the funeral if they could put COVID on the death certificate. Unbelievable. Fucking mental. Why would you do that if it wasn't just a push to convince people of COVID? And this went on throughout 2020. And by October, this guy openly admitted to me on the phone, he said, I don't know why I'm doing this job. Everyone is saying the same thing. There are no COVID deaths. That's what the guy openly admitted to me. And then he said, I'm not going to be calling no more. There's no need. Well, this was back in October of 2020, before they'd even rolled the jabs out. So Rainer Fulmick put it perfectly on Reflection, where the jabs were never about COVID. COVID was about the jabs and convincing the people of the need for these jabs. So there was no more funerals in 2020 than any other year, but there was loads of COVID deaths. So of course, come January 2021, everyone's lining up to be saved by a fucking non-existent illness. And I was washing and dressing them the whole way through. The whole way through, every one of them. I had funeral directors sending families to me because they was going to these funeral directors and saying, well, I lost my mum over a Zoom call. I really would like to spend some time with her. And they were all like, no washing, no dressing. I was calling Catholic priests who wouldn't even come and bless a closed fucking coffin. And in the end, I'd ring and say, please ring them, please. It means everything. They'd hang up on me. As soon as my phone, they'd pick up the phone, they'd hear it was me, and they would hang up because they knew I'd be asking them to come and bless a closed fucking coffin. That's men of God, and they were Catholic priests. So, and I washed and dressed them all throughout 2020. You know, I never wore a mask because I couldn't fucking breathe in a mask.
So, do you not believe in COVID at all?
I believe there was something that was hospitalising people, being that perhaps, and don't get me wrong, I've had the insight to be very privileged position to sit at some very influential meetings with some very clever people, politicians included. Now, I believe there was something that was hospitalising people, and the rest was then done with malfeasance in the hospitals. Now, what I would like your listeners to do is cast their mind back to 2020, 2021. What was the only antiviral treatment they would offer a COVID patient? It was a drug called remdesivir, right? So I want people to Google common side effects or side effects of remdesivir and just have a look at the results. There will be loads of results come up. One of them is a website called drugs.com. And it's kind of layman terms. It breaks it down. Difficulty breathing, wheeziness, tight chest. Why would you give that to a respiratory patient unless you were trying to generate COVID deaths? That's what they were doing. They were doing it because that was government policy, was the only drugs they were allowed to administer was remdesivir. Have a look at the common side effects of remdesivir. Have a look for yourself. You can Google it on your phone. Tell me if you think it's conducive to the recovery in a respiratory patient. You then put them on ventilation, right? People that didn't even need ventilating were put on a ventilator because they were paid to do that. And then what the ventilator does is it overfills the lungs, tears the lungs, and makes that condition worse. And now, as a funeral director, when I was picking up these COVID patients, they all had the same story, right? Mum never went into hospital with COVID. She went in with a water infection, and then they spam tested her in there until they got a positive result and moved her on the COVID ward. She was asymptomatic, and then they gave her the drugs to make her better, even though she weren't fucking ill. They gave her remdesivir, and they ventilated her, and she went and died COVID. That's what they were doing. And I was picking these people up that they labelled as COVID deaths, and their body bags were kind of half filled with edema, with fluid. And I'd never, ever seen that before. And I remember before I fully cottoned on thinking, fucking hell, what is this COVID doing there? It's doing that. And I've since found out. So I was taking them out the bag, draining the fluid off, taking these people out and washing them and dressing them, because that's what people should have been doing at the hospital. And they let these people down massively. And they had people standing on doorsteps clapping for them. It's fucking insane. I'm never going to stand on a doorstep and clap for the NHS ever. I know what they were doing. And I've been in a COVID ward and watched it happen, right? So these people, they were so bloated, they were filled up with fluid, and I couldn't understand why. And they, to the point where they'd be crying yellow tears out of every orifice, out of their ears and nose and mouth, and all bloated. And even though I'd be really gentle with them, pulling them across, you'd leave handprints in their arms because they're so full of edema. It's the remdesivir, because the remdesivir kills their kidneys, so their bodies can't process fluid. So they fill up with fluid and they drown, and there's your respiratory illness.
And so is this what you were telling the public when you was making videos?
Yeah, 100%. I've been shouting for 4 years now. When I first started shouting, people all said that I was mad. And don't forget, it's a story that's unfolded as it's gone along. So up until kind of midway through 2020, I knew there wasn't really a COVID. And I because I wasn't dying, and there were no more numbers than normal, and they were faking the figures. This guy admitted to me they were faking the figures. Why were they doing that? I couldn't understand why. And then they rolled out the jabs. And before they rolled out the jabs, I kind of cottoned on what was going to happen. And I've openly said on my Facebook account, I said, wait till they roll the jabs out. You're going to see what they call another wave. And that's exactly what happened. The moment they put needles in people, they all started falling over and dying. And the death rate, from January the 6th, they started vaccinating. And straight away it went through the roof. And it was all the age groups of the people they were vaccinating. So they started, didn't they, with the 70s and 80-year-old, the people that are most vulnerable, the ones that are going to die. And they did fucking die. They died because they were euthanized with these fucking toxic vaccines. And then as they went down the age groups and they did the 60s, no, it's only the most vulnerable. Oh, no, we're going to do the 60s. It's only the 60s. Oh, no, it's the 50s. No, the 40s. Well, if you're over 30, you should have it. And they kept moving the goalposts, didn't they? Well, as they did, and as they injected these people, it was that age group that was dying. It was undeniable. And don't forget, I've been doing this job for 18 years now. I know who should fucking die and in what number. I know it was these vaccines that have been killing people. And then roll on halfway through 2021, I'm finding all these unnatural blood clots inside them. So I know. So in September of 2021, I took a phone call, and it was from a guy called Mark Sexton. He's a retired police constable. And I'd been very vocal by then. I was warning people. I was pleading with people, please don't take them, because I'm seeing people that are dying. And they were all saying I was fucking mad and I was dangerous. And all my friends dropped me like a shitty stick. None of them believed me, because there was so much effort made, wasn't there? Boris Johnson was on the telly. And I've got people that work in sheet metal telling me I don't know who's dying when I'm putting people in coffins for a living. You know, when you're like, why would I do that? Why would I jeopardize my own fucking business, my successful business, to say that? Why would I do it? It doesn't make any sense. Why would I lie? Nobody could tell me why I would lie, but they all said I was fucking mad. So anyway, I took a phone call and I was invited to a meeting in Westminster at a place called Birdcage Walk in Westminster. Really swanky place. I sat at this table. I'm not kidding. It was about like that, solid oak, in this boardroom, great big boardroom, great big table, maybe 40 foot long, you know, enough for like 20 people around it. And at this meeting, there were a number of people that I'd never met. I'd heard of a few of them. Was Professor Dolores Cale, Dr. Tess Laurie, Dr. Sukarit Bhakdi was there via a Zoom link at the end. Francis Hoare, the barrister, Dr. Sam White, Dr. Stephen Frost, Philip Hyland, the barrister, Anna de Bisseret, the lawyer, bless her, she's a lovely girl, and others were there. There was about 18 there in total. Some of them, 3 or 4 were there virtually, or 5, maybe even more, but about 18 in total. And the guy at the end, there was supposed to be 2 government ministers in attendance. One of them didn't come and was cited it was personal reasons, but the one that was in attendance was a guy called Sir Graham Brady. Now, Sir Graham, I wasn't that familiar with politics, and I was never down any kind of rabbit holes. And in fact, I've had many vaccines over the years. I went and had a pneumonia vaccine when they announced COVID because we were told it would kill us with pneumonia. So I went and got paid privately to have it, and my missus to protect us because we're handling the deceased. But this particular minister was Sir Graham Brady. Now, Sir Graham at the time was what's called the commissioner of something called the 1922 Committee. You can Google it, and it tells you all about him. But it's basically a group of men and women, senior politicians that sit in the shadows, and they hire and fire prime ministers. So they select prime ministerial candidates, and they then get rid of them when they think they've run their course. So he hired and fired Boris, Liz Truss, and Rishi Sunak. You know, they hire and fire them all. And this guy, there's no one more senior than this guy. Now, we went round the table. Sir Graham was actually sitting there, and I sat next to him. I actually spoke first. I knew what I had to say, and I'd abbreviated it into like 5 minutes because you're told that time is of the essence. You know, ministerial time is really important. So I said what I needed to say, and I said that they'd faked a load of deaths, and the moment needles went in, I saw people dying, you know, from the jabs. And then I listened as it went round the table, and I listened to the barristers and the professors and the people that were expert in their field, and I couldn't believe what I was listening to. They said how these people would die, what the mechanisms would be. They said about the cancers, and they said about the heart attacks and the clotting, and they went into real detail about how it was going to happen. And I kept looking at this Sir Graham Brady because I can multitask, and I'm a people person. You know, I worked on the door 7 years. So his reaction to me was more telling than what they were saying, because I could tell he knew. He fucking knew. He was sat there ashen-faced, mortified, and we all went to this meeting thinking, oh, at last someone's listening, you know? And he went to report back. They knew. And he openly admitted it's way, way above my pay grade. I can't do anything to stop it.
This is also above my pay grade.
Yeah.
But I'll be very interested to see and hear what people are saying in the comments section, because a lot of people are very, very into this. I mean, was you considered a conspiracy theorist?
No. I went and got a vaccine, a pneumonia vaccine in, I'll tell you when it would have been. It would have been about January or February of 2020, because we were told that's how it was killing people, from pneumonia. And I didn't want to get pneumonia, so I went and paid privately to have it done. I didn't get a COVID vaccine because it wasn't available then, but I went and got a pneumonia vaccine that they only usually give to the elderly. You know, and I did that to protect myself. I've had every jab there is.
And if people try to silence your voice?
Yeah, so there's a number of ways. One was they tried to buy me first. So I took an email from a girl called Yvonne Myers, who said she was from RT News.
So can I just cut in there and just say, before you go on, just to give some context at home, because there'll be people that are very familiar with you, and there'll be people that won't be, because we always reach a different new audience every single week with every interview. So during lockdown, I would always see you in WhatsApp groups making videos, warning people of what you're seeing from your perspective.
Yeah.
So you was a familiar face certainly on my phone, and a lot of people I knew.
Yeah.
But I didn't see you on social media, so I'm just wondering, did they?
Because they shut me down as soon as I started saying anything about it, and it was very interesting because for me the journey, social media censorship wise, started on YouTube. So I had a YouTube account. I love history. I love YouTube because it's full of documentaries, biographies, history, and I would watch it late at night. Now I'm a night owl, and the reason for that is because I used to go and work pubs and clubs. So I'd get home 4 a.m, 4:30. I ping, I'm wide awake, I'm still buzzing, I'm watching documentaries. So I'm watching YouTube, and this is at a time when COVID had been rolled out, and I couldn't help but seeing the COVID posts because they were spamming everywhere. Get your jab, get your vaccine, get your vaccine. Have an Uber, have a pizza on us, you know, tickets for a raffle, anything to get people to have a jab, and the terrors of COVID. And I was seeing these posts, and I dipped into one, and I looked at it, and I thought, well, that's not what I'm seeing as a funeral director. And I said, you know, in honesty, I'm a funeral director. That's not what I'm seeing. And I left it there. And it lets you know when you get a like. So somebody liked it, then somebody else liked it, somebody else liked it. And there was a few comments. And then somebody said, you're not a funeral director. You're a keyboard activist. So then you reach a crossroads, don't you? You've got two ways that you can go. You can think this could be damaging from our business at a time when they're telling everyone who's dying of COVID. For me as a funeral director, somebody say there is no COVID. That could be really damaging to me. Or you take a step back, don't you, and say, no, fuck it, I'll leave it there. Well, I said, well, actually, I am a funeral director. www.mkffs.co.uk, that's me. And within half an hour, they banned my account, my YouTube account, after that comment. Literally, yeah. For me, identifying just saying that's not what I'm saying. I am a funeral director, and this is me. So then I knew that I was onto something, because when you've got people of that level actively censoring and hiding the truth, then you know you're telling the truth. I know who's fucking dying. I know who's dying. I haven't picked up 10 packets of calamari. These are people that have died full of this crap that I've never seen in 18 years I've been doing this job. What kind of guy would I be if I saw this and ignored it and thought, well, I'll wait for someone else to say something?
What about platforms like Facebook and Twitter?
No, Facebook banned me straight away. Yeah, oofed me straight. And I remember being gutted at the time. So I've always been a PC gamer in my spare time. Love playing PC games. Many guys will resonate, Call of Duty and first-person shooters. I had a VR headset, Oculus, and that was tied into the Facebook account. I had about 500 quid's worth of games on there. And because they'd banned my Facebook account, it deactivates and deletes all the software on the... Yeah, so they closed my account and knocked off all the software on me just because I'd spoken out and said they're not dying from COVID. I know what they're dying. I know what they're dying from. I know what they're... But it rather than it put me off or silence me, it spurred me on, because I can tell you now, you sit there and put fucking murder victims in coffins. And I don't know what's worse. Some of the families know, and that's heartbreaking, because not only have they lost their mum, but they know their mum's been betrayed by the state and murdered by the state. But then for the ones that don't know, and they genuinely feel, oh, mum's just had a heart attack at 32, you know, and if you've got a 3-year-old kid putting handprints on the coffin, it's fucking heartbreaking when you know what they've died from. And I'm pulling this crap out, and then I'm reaching out to the coroner, and they don't want to know. And then I've been to the police station. I went to the police station, Thames Valley Police, right? And I've said to the desk sergeant, I said, I'm a local funeral director. I run a funeral home in Emerson Valley. I've been doing it for a long time. I've got real concerns about a number of deaths of people in my care. Can I speak to an officer, please? That's as much as I said. So he went upstairs, he spoke to his gaff, and he's come back downstairs totally disinterested. Won't even sit and listen to what I've got to say. And he said, sit down there and wait. 3 hours, me and Mark Sexton waited in Thames Valley Police in Milton Keynes. And then he said, no, there's no one to see you, and sent us home. What does an undertaker have to do to raise concerns about people that are in his care that clearly have died from not natural causes? That's so as a funeral director, I have a responsibility any concerns I have over a death, I have to raise those concerns. So let me explain. If I went down the hospital and I picked someone up and I got them home and I rolled them during the course of dressing them and there's a knife hanging out their back or a big puncture wound, I have to raise those concerns. I have to do it for two reasons. One, I have a legal obligation to do it. I have to do it by law. If I don't, I'm breaking the law, not reporting that. Number two, I have a moral obligation as a decent fucking human being. Why would you not raise those concerns? Here are people I'm pulling unnatural clots out of, and they're not interested. They're actively hiding it, which tells me they are complicit.
Are there any other undertakers that are
loads? I've got loads.
The same as what you're
I can give you the email addresses of them. Most of them are American side and Canada side, but I've spoken to loads personally. I had one woman ring me up very early on, and they run 7 funeral homes down south. She wouldn't come out openly and say it, though, publicly, because they're frightened about the effects it'll have on their business. And don't get me wrong, when I first started speaking out, of course, they slagged me to fuck. They discredited me in the thing. Of course, people are going, oh, that's the conspiracy theorist undertaker. It would have cost me money. But that was a thing I was prepared to do. I was prepared to do it because the alternative is for me to be complicit and not say fuck all. And I'm not willing to do that when there's people who are dying. Women, children, babies are fucking dying. I've had midwives ring me up who see the clots in the placentas. And the babies are born early and they're born sick. And look at the birth rate. Look at the birth rate. It's fucking biblically plummeted because they vaccinated all these mothers who have lost their kids. There's a guy called Dr. Luke McClendon, right? So Dr. Luke McClendon was the head of fertility at the Mater Hospital in Australia. You can Google him and find it and look it up. And he keeps the figures and the numbers, right? So the number of women that miscarry naturally is between 5 and 14%. And that's just, people don't often talk about it. You know, it's not something people discuss, baby deaths. It's a time when most families want to be alone, left alone to grieve quietly. But he'd kept the numbers and he noticed that vaccinated mothers, 76% of COVID vaccinated mothers lost their babies. 76, 3/4 of them. So he raised the alarm. What did they do? Did they thank him and say, well done, you've raised it? No, they fucked him straight off. They got rid of him. And I spoke to Luke McClendon to confirm who he was and what he'd said. And it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Senator Robert MacDonald in the Australian Parliament openly discussed it. The birth rate's gone down 67% in Australia. They are thinning the grass. What would you do if you were having a cold? There's 2 things you do. One is you sterilise the kids, and number 2, you bump people off, and that's what they're doing. I watched that Professor Bell from Oxford University, and he was talking to a very well-known newscaster, and he was discussing the jabs, and he didn't know that he was live. He thought they were recording, and he openly admitted between 60 and 70% of the kids that are having these jabs are sterilised. They won't be able to have children. Grasp it, grab it, because it is a real thing. The footage is out there to be found in the ether. So, and that correlates perfectly with what I've been told and people that I've spoken to. That's what's happening. And the baby deaths were being hidden as well. And it's very interesting the way it works. So what would happen with baby deaths? Normally, parents would lose a child, be it preterm or full term. They would liaise with the bereavement department, right? The bereavement department would then give them a list of accredited funeral directors that are local. Now, any decent funeral director will never charge a family for the death of a child. We don't. I do it free. I'll even buy that kid's coffin out of my own pocket. And that's on my website. You can go and have a look. And in fact, I had a family in this week that have lost a child. They won't be charged a penny. I will pay everything because I won't profit from the death of a child. So I'm hearing about all these baby deaths, and there's a funeral director called Wesley, right? And what I want you guys to do is do a search for Wesley, funeral director, baby deaths. And if you do it, you'll find his video he's done. And he talks extensively about the number of baby deaths that he's seeing. So many that they're having to put them in the adult fridges and they're putting 2 and 3 to a tray. And this was throughout 2021 and 2022. In COVID vaccinated, they were losing their babies in massive numbers. And the way it works usually is they would give these bereaved parents a list of funeral directors. They would then contact the funeral directors and we would arrange a funeral. That stopped. I was hearing about all these babies dying, but no parents are getting in touch. And I was thinking, well, what the fuck are they doing? And then I was going down the crematorium and there's a notice board in the waiting room, right? So this notice board It has, it's a public notice board, so it's public information. And it has a list of who the deceased is, the time of the funeral, the chapel, and who the arranging funeral director is. So if I did John Smith's and it was a 3 o'clock, it would say, John Smith's funeral, it's a 3 p.m. in the Oak Chapel, and the arranging funeral director is Milton Keynes Family Funeral Services. There's loads of babies now on there, and do you know who the arranging client is? The local hospital. So the hospitals are dealing directly with the crematorium for baby deaths. They're cutting out the funeral directors altogether now, because if there was a huge surge in baby deaths, funeral directors would know because the phone would be ringing. But if they're arranging these funerals directly with crematoriums, anyway, I spoke to a guy who works there who no longer does. And he said they were sending vans down the hospital and picking 6 and 8 babies up at a time. They're hiding it. And the way they hide it is doing that.
Cutting out the middleman.
Yeah, of course. Well, if you think about it logically, if these women have been poisoned with these COVID jabs and they've lost those babies and they've also then been sterilized in the process, because that's what's happened, there are no babies now being conceived. So the death rate from babies is going to look fairly normal now because they can't get pregnant anymore. So initially, they vaccinate these women and the baby deaths would surge. And then because they're all fucking sterilized, the death rate comes down because you can only lose a baby if you get pregnant.
Have you had anybody invite you onto a talk show to debate you?
I'm happy to debate people. I'm happy to debate, but they won't debate me. I've openly said, another thing that happened, right, in December of 2021, I took a phone call, right, and I've had loads of people call me of all different walks. I spoke to RFK, Alex Jones, all of the big ones, John Campbell, everyone, and I would speak to anyone. I don't look at anyone as more important than this is an attack on humanity. So I would talk to someone who's working from their bedroom and who's got an audience of 10. There's still 10 people I might save. So I took a phone call from a guy who told me he was from British intelligence, right? And usually I would go, oh, yeah, and I'm fucking Batman, thank you. But I listened to this guy and he was really compelling. He was an older guy and he was up for retirement, but he hadn't retired. They'd asked him to stay on. Obviously, because there is a need for it, isn't there, in these times that we're going through. And he said, everything you've said is true, is right. He said, and also you are a person of interest, you'll be targeted. And I was like, anyway, I listened to him for about 40 minutes. I come off the phone, I was like, fuck. And you know, I was going in every day. I was opening the door with my elbow and emptying the kettle. And, you know, what do you do when you're a person of interest and you're going to be I mean, this guy handles the messages and he's seen me and he's told me. So anyway, 3-4 weeks later, I fell ill and I got really, really breathless to the point where I had to call an ambulance. My SATs went down to 78%. And I've been in touch with a lot of doctors because lots of doctors know me and lots of doctors have reached out and they've admitted it to me, what's going on. Anyway, I got took to hospital. I went into triage and this was end of December 2021. And it was empty. There was no one else in that triage, none. No one there. I've never seen it empty. And this was at a time when they were reporting saying how overrun they are with COVID. There was no one in there. I got sore straight away. That's how overrun they were, right? So anyway, the girl said, I want to do a PCR test. I said, I ain't doing a PCR test because by then I knew the damage they were doing with them. And she said, well, lateral flow and you can spit on it. And all right, then. So I spat on, did 3 lateral flow tests in the machine they have there. She said, no, you're negative, COVID negative on all of them. You haven't got COVID. I said, I think I've been burnt or poisoned. She said, well, we're going to put you on a COVID ward anyway. And then I knew, because I'd had this conversation with this British intelligence guy. I knew what was going to happen. And I even knew what treatment they would offer me. So the following morning, a guy sat on the bed. I don't know who that consultant was. He was a white guy, about 55, good-looking guy, tanned, you know, typical consultant. And he said to me, I'm here to save your life from COVID, you know. And I was like, okay. I said, and I was on oxygen. I weren't on ventilation because I didn't need it. And they'd offered me ventilation and tried to coerce me into agreeing to have it. And I was like, no, I don't need it. I've got a bit of oxygen. I feel all right. I don't need it. And he said, I'm here to save your life. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? I said, because I ain't got COVID. I've had 3 of your tests. These are the tests that you're putting people on palliative care and locking them in fucking side rooms, starving them to death. And filling them full of midazolam and morphine. And he said, well, we just want to be sure. And I said, okay. I said, and tell me how you're going to do that then. I said, and while you do that, tell me the clinical benefits to me as a respiratory patient. I'll have a look at what remdesivir does to me, the side effects. Oh, look, difficulty breathing, wheeziness, tight chest, kidney function, liver function. Well, and he just got up and he fucking shot off like a rat because he knew that I knew what I was on about. So anyway, and I never saw that guy again. He didn't come back. He knew that I knew, and he was ashamed. You could see the shame in his face because I knew what he was trying to do. So anyway, about 3-4 hours later, I had a really gaunt, skinny woman appear. She was painfully thin and she was real agitated. You know, when they can't look at your floor, ceiling, anywhere but your eyes. And she sat down on their bed, and have a guess what she said? I'm here to save your life from COVID. Exact same line, like it's out of a book of coercement. You know, that they've got to follow, that a template.
Do you think they're aware?
They fucking know. They know.
You don't think they're just following
orders? No,
orders?
they fucking know. They're chased the money and follow government policy, and they've seen the outcomes in these people, and they're fucking in up to there now. They're in up to there, and they've got the commitment of a Japanese soldier. They're in up to there because they're complicit now. It's too late for them. So I kind of said to her, I said, well, have you had a look at my notes? I said, I ain't got COVID. I said, I've had 3 of your tests. These are the tests you're putting people on palliative care on the back of. We just want to be sure. Same bullshit. So I said, well, what are you going to do? I said, how are you going to save me from COVID I haven't got? I said, and she said, we want to offer you 2 drugs, right? Now, I want your people listening to write down the drugs. One of them is called baricitinib, baricitinib, baricitinib. And the other one, it was called tocilizumab. So tocilizumab, and Google will auto-spell it. But if you do side effects for both, have a guess what the common side effects of both of these drugs are. Wheeziness, tight chest, difficulty breathing. Why would you give someone who's clearly a respiratory patient drugs that will make it harder to breathe? And why would you then pay out vast amounts for everyone that went down as a COVID death? What do you think that's going to do? It's going to generate COVID deaths. They're only doing what they're told. If you Google remdesivir to treat COVID, they'll still be throwing it out now. It's under a different brand name in America, and I can't remember what the brand name is, but it's there. They'll put remdesivir in, whoever they can put it in. And if you know the history of remdesivir, the history under Anthony Fauci is this. So he went into Africa, right, Anthony Fauci, and he sourced and PCR tested African babies, asymptomatic. Sound familiar? African babies. They weren't showing any symptoms, but they were PCR testing for Ebola this time. And then he was treating them with remdesivir. 53% of these babies died from multiple organ failure after being given the medicine. Asymptomatic babies. So that was the test run with remdesivir, was in Africa, where life is cheap. And they don't give a fuck about them. You know, they've exploited them for decades, centuries, haven't they? And that was where they did the test runs.
So what do you think the ultimate goal is?
Cutting the grass. It's all about cutting the grass and getting us to accept draconian tyranny and legislation that limit where we can go and what we can do.
When you say trim the grass, what do you mean?
That's how they refer to us. So for them to say that they're having a cull is too distasteful. And I've been told this by very eminent people.
Reducing the population?
Yes, reducing the population. It's called cutting the grass. So when the grass gets too long, you cut the grass. Because it's a more pleasant way of discussing it. And it's dehumanizing it, isn't it? You know, that's what they refer to it too. Look at Agenda 2030. Look at the Kalergi plan. These are real things. And I never believed it. I would have never believed it until I'd sat there in Westminster and listened to this guy when we all said what we said, and he said it's way above my pay grade and I can't stop it. If I was Graham Brady, who is now King's Privy Council, so clearly crime does pay, he's been promoted. He's now King's Privy Council. How can they not have picked out his phone straight away and said, I'm sitting here with 18 people who know, stop these jabs, we need to talk to them and find out. Why didn't he do that? Because it was way, way above his pay grade. That's the guy that hire and fire prime ministers. So if you're sitting there thinking Starmer's in charge, he's not in charge. There is no democracy. It doesn't matter who it is. It's two cheeks of the same arse. They do what they're told to do. Every decision Starmer makes. Let me tell you, Keir Starmer is widely regarded as a village idiot. He's a village idiot. He has no fucking brain whatsoever. Actually, he's somewhere on the spectrum of mildly autistic. He does what he's told to do. He's a communist. He's really easily influenced. He does what he's told to do. That's the reality of who our Prime Minister is. They don't run the country. They do what they're told to do. And that's what he's going to come out with, more and more outrageous shit. And the reason is they're desperate for civil unrest. They need civil unrest to step up their plan and start rounding more and more people up. Why do you think they're locking up white British people for shouting at police dogs and police horses? Because that's the plan. That's the plan. We are being replaced. And I would have never, ever believed it until I stumbled across. I took one phone call, right, from a guy from the Black Watch Regiment. And he told me that they're training these young lads in Antalya, in Turkey, and the east of Ukraine. And this would have been back, probably 2022, some point. I've took so many phone calls, it's overload. But he said they're down to sergeant ranks and they ship them to France. They sign the Official Secrets Act before they're let on the boat. These people are paid soldiers. They're paid UN soldiers, and they're ferried here, and they plonk them all around the country, don't they? All in strategic locations. In fact, who was it? The idiot ginger-haired girl, Raina, is it? She openly said, everyone's going to have their share. Well, of course they are, because what they want is these people, these young lads are going to create as much resentment and civil unrest and mayhem as they possibly can. And the idea is to create the need to get rid of them. And I think we would all agree on that. Everyone is desperate to see the back of them. Well, what happens when you try and get rid of these people? Who jumps on it straight away? The human rights lawyers. So they're going to tout that the only way to get rid of these people is for human rights reform and us leaving what's called the ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights. And life is going to become so unpleasant and so distasteful and so violent and unsafe in this country with these young lads they're bringing in, people are going to beg for human rights law reform to get rid of them. Not actually realising that when they do so, they don't only remove these young lads' human rights, but ours as well. And then under this 5G network, they're going to announce bird flu or disease X. And Bill Gates sat there, didn't he? Stifling laughter as he said, you'll take notice of the next one. And then they're going to mandate the cure. And people that are dropping like flies, and they will drop like flies because that tech is designed to do that and they're full of graphene oxide. It's going to happen. And then they'll mandate and you will have no human rights to say no. Why do you think you could turn down the COVID vaccine? Because you've got human rights. So if you forfeit those human rights, what rights have you got to say no?
Since your revelation during lockdown, has it completely taken over your life?
Yeah, I would say probably yes. Yeah, probably yes. And more, I think mostly because I realised the gravity of the situation. One of the things, and don't get me wrong, I've often sat, why am I sitting here now? Because I've obviously resonated with you. And you obviously see what is going on and want to know more and want to spread that message out. I've spoke to some people that I never thought I would ever speak to. I've spoke to politicians, police officers, the military. I've had 4 peers get in touch with me in the last 3, 4, 5 months. In the last 20 weeks, I've had 4 separate peers. The last one was actually this morning, who's asked me to reach out to him to have a chat with him. They know what's going on. They know there's a coup going on, a coup d'etat. And they say it's the communists, and Keir Starmer is a communist.
I mean, I've got to think, what would be in it for you to be delivering misinformation?
To be honest with
Where's
you,
the mileage in it for you?
I cannot wait to get back to just being me. Now, some speakers, I've had people ring up to me and they've said, oh yeah, we pay a speaker's fee and we pay this and we pay that. And I understand everyone has to earn a crust. I'm very fortunate in that I've still got a business to run. And I've still got an income because we're all slave to the moneylender. You know, all these muppets that say slavery ended 250 years ago. Have a look at your direct debits and tell me you're not a slave. Or stop working and then let me know what happens to you. You'll lose everything because we are slaves. We are slaves. That's what we are. I've come to realise that. Now, I don't understand why people would think that I would jeopardise a really good business. Why would I jeopardise a business? Why would I alienate all my friends? If COVID was a real thing and I'm a funeral director putting these people in coffins, why would I not get vaccinated? Why was the uptake for a COVID booster in the NHS recently, 71% of them said no thank you. Why do people think that is? People on the front line. Why do people think that people like cardiologists like Asim Malhotra, Dr. Mohammed Adil, Dr. Stephen Frost, Dr. Tess Laurie, Professor Dolores Kale, Dr. Mike Yeadon, the former vice CEO of Pfizer, is openly declaring it is a bioweapon. It was developed for that. But people can't believe it. And the reason for that is the effort that's been made, the media. And fundamentally, most people are good. You get arseholes in all walks of life. You know that. I know that. But most people are not wicked, evil people. Most people, if you said to them, go and poison a couple of kids for us, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. But these people will. They look at us as grass. We are grass. And they want to cut the grass.
Is your wife behind you?
Yeah, she is. She's very frightened. And it puts great pressure on a marriage, don't it? Because it's fucking depressing and it's misery. And I'm so committed because once you understand what's going on, you realise it's a numbers game.
What are you trying to achieve?
I want to overthrow these people, these criminals, and I want them pulled out of government, and I want to see a new government in with a moral compass that actually has the people at heart. I want to see these criminals, the people that pushed this and made money, held accountable and stand trial in Nuremberg. That's what I'd like.
And is there a particular platform, say Jordan Peterson, Piers Morgan, is there a particular platform you'd love to appear on?
I would speak to any of them, and I would love them to prove me wrong, and I would love them to explain away what my experience has been as a funeral director and having lain on a COVID ward, watching. I mean, one guy, I was laying on a bed on a COVID ward, right? There was only 3 of us in that 4-bedroom, and the guy over here, they were both on CPAP because they believed the bullshit they were fed because they didn't know what I knew. So they took the remdesivir, and I listened to these two choking to death. And every now and again, especially at night time, this guy was saying, nurse, nurse, and she was taking him shots of morphine. Why the fuck would you give someone who cannot breathe morphine? It's insane. It's insanity. And I've yet to have a single medical professional explain it away and tell me it was a good idea. This was a guy in his 50s. He wasn't terminally ill. He took the poison and it was killing him. That's the reality. And like I say, I've been in a COVID ward. I've seen what went on, and they should be ashamed of themselves. And the worst thing is, the most psychotic, satanic thing is, they actually had people clapping on doorsteps, banging pots and pans, instilling into people what heroes these people were, while they were murdering their fucking loved ones in COVID wards. It's unbelievable. But there we are. That's what we are. Now, how could I possibly ignore that? Is it something where I can say, oh, well, I won't get involved? No, I can't. I can't do that. I can't be complicit. I have to fight these to the bitter death because what they've done is a biblical evil. And I will never, ever rest in peace. And, do you know, when I pass, I'll walk back into the light and I'll be back down here as soon as I can in another body to get back at them again, because what they've done is unforgivable.
But do you think that a lot of people within the NHS were all psyoped into believing it?
Oh, of course they were. Of course they were. We've got lots of people good people doing really bad things. Why did doctors do it? For money. They were getting £10 a jab. They could do 100 jabs a day, tax-free. That's £1,000 a day. That's £5,000 a week, tax-free. Giving out COVID jabs, following government policy. Who wouldn't do that? But my argument is this, is when you see the outcome in your patients. I mean, if you're in general practice, right, and you have an allotted amount of patients, and you see these patients on a regular basis, and you know these patients have just had a COVID jab, and all of a sudden, there are record numbers of cancers appearing in your patients, and there are record numbers of myocardia appearing in the patients, especially youngsters. You know something is wrong. Why are you keeping that secret? Why do you continue to administer and promote these jabs, knowing the outcomes in these patients? Nurses on the wards giving respiratory patients remdesivir and watching the outcome as they fade and die. Why would you do that and continue to do it? And if you had a secret, right, and you knew what was going on and you kept that secret, how long would you keep that secret for before you're complicit in the crime? Is it a week? Is it a month? Could you get away with standing up in court and say, well, it was 6 months because I didn't want to lose my job? And these people are 3-4 years in now. They've been paid money. They're in up to there. And I don't doubt they're being reminded of that. In fact, on my blower, I could show you a list of over 100 nurses who have reached out to me and left their details as well. Some of them have cried down the phone. Some of them have told me they're surrounded by psychopaths who laughed and mocked people falling over as they were jabbed. And if these girls with a conscience have left the NHS, and most of them have, who does that leave in there? The fucking sociopaths, the nutcases who want to play God and who will administer things like remdesivir and midazolam. And it's care homes. I go to care homes. Loads of them have told me what's been going on. The district nurse comes, they vaccinate them. They take bets on who's going to die.
Have you had any prominent figures online challenge you?
No, none. I would love to speak to them. I'd love to have Graham Brady sitting here to call me a liar. You can check with Dolores Cahill, Tess Laurie, Dr. Stephen Frost, Dr. Sam White, all of them. They were all there at the meeting. Every one of them heard what I heard.
Has anybody challenged you?
No, none of them will. In fact, when I came out of hospital, because I discharged myself, despite being told I'd die without their medicine, yeah, here I am. It's a miracle.
So no one's challenged you, but yet you've been silenced on
of course
on platforms.
Well, I had they've tried 3 or 4 different things. So I've had a number of young women over the last 2 years contact me and just DM me, want to get to know me. You know, I followed you, and I want a cup of coffee and this, that, and I'm not fucking stupid. I'm not stupid. I had one girl, Yvonne Myers from RT News. Right, this was in 2021. She contacted me and said, I've listened to your story. It's really compelling. Here at RT News, we've got a global audience and we would like to get your story as an exclusive. And we want to do 3 or 4 episodes. And for that, we'll tie you in contractually and we'll pay you $85,000, right? So she offered me $85,000 for my story. They'll then tout that to networks. And for that, they'll get 85 grand, basically. But an exclusive, so I can't talk to anyone else. So what are they going to do? They take my story, what I've just told you, they tout that out. Nobody was going to ever show it. The BBC are not going to show it. The ITV are not going to show it. It's not going to go on Channel 4, is it? So then it goes in the bottom drawer, and I can't talk to anyone else. So I got that email. I could show you the email. I'll forward you the email. I kind of said to her, listen, I'm really flattered and thank you for the offer of the money. It's not about money. It's not about money. And then trust me, no one could do with 85 grand more than me. I've just been robbed. But I'll talk to you for nothing. How much have I asked you for today? I'm going to do a 200-mile round trip. I don't even want petrol money. Because it's not about money. And I said, I will talk to you. I don't want your money and I'm not signing the contract. Do you know what happened? I'd never heard from them again. So if they can't silence you and they can't bump you off in hospital, and that's what they wanted when I was in hospital, I knew what was going to happen. They wanted the death of a prominent anti-vaxxer that they could call COVID.
Where can people find you to find out more about you and what you're fighting against?
It's Milton Keynes Family Funeral Services. If you do a search for MKFFS, then you'll find me. And I would say, especially if you're from abroad and you will have an international audience, please call me in British working hours because otherwise I'll get woken up all night. I haven't got a magic wand. There is no force for good that I can tell you all about other than the moral compass we have inside us. But I would say to you, don't take any of these jabs. I'm hearing bad things about anesthetics that are going in people and flu jabs, and I wouldn't have anything now at all.
And what about your social media platforms?
So I'm on Twitter, and that's at O'Looney John. I'm also on Telegram. If you do a search for John O'Looney, and I hated doing that. It used to be called Oasis Fidelis, an Oasis of Friends. That means Fidelis is Latin for friends. But people couldn't find it. They were looking for me, and so I've had to put my name to it. And it's not about me. I can't wait to go back to being a fucking Undertaker. And all this be over. It's never been about me. I've never took a penny off anyone. I don't want any money. There's no book, there's no T-shirt, there's no videos that I've ever been paid for. I just can't stand there and sit and watch these people coming in with this and dying and nobody doing anything about it. It's mental.
Well, my final question then, where do you go from here and when do you return to John the Undertaker, the husband?
When these people are standing in the dock at Nuremberg.
You're going to keep going?
Yeah, I'm never going to shut up. And if prison is part of my journey, so be it. I'm never, ever going to be silenced. No, I can't. There's too many murder victims have come through. They're never going to face justice otherwise. We need justice for these people. They need to be brought to account because we're more than grass.
It's almost impossible not to respect a man with your conviction.
I'm not frightened. I'm not frightened of death. You know, do I want to be tortured to death? Of course I fucking don't. Do I want another 25 years and watch my kids grow up? Of course I do. But why is my family any more important than yours? And what kind of guy would I be if I didn't say anything? You know, we've got undertakers who know what's going on. They all know. I've spoken to them. I've even had them tap me on the shoulder at the local crematorium saying, oh, well done. Thanks for speaking out. It needed to be said. And then I look at them and I go, okay, that's great. What about you saying something? And they look at the floor and they shuffle their feet and they're just gutless. They're gutless. They're more bothered about their own direct debits than they are about the life of a child or a woman or even what right do they have to kill the old of? None. And I won't stand there and not call them arseholes, right, until if they could put me under a guillotine, I'll still shout bollocks.
And is there anything else without me asking you off the cuff that you want to say? What would your final message be to people watching and listening?
I would just say that this is a numbers game. All revolutions are, and that's what we need. There is no one to vote for. There is no democracy. It's just two cheeks of the same arse. These people are here to follow 2030, the Agenda 2030 and the Kalergi plan. They are replacing us, and the plan is to get rid of us and get other people in. Why? You'd have to ask them. I really don't know why. I stumbled upon it as a funeral director when I realised COVID was a lie and who was dying. And it's led me down other rabbit holes that are all part of the same plan. You can choose to believe it. You can choose to ignore it. It won't change what's going to happen, will it? You know, and as they become more and more draconian and tyrannical and arrest and round us up for people shouting at police dogs while they're raping and killing British citizens, you know, in your heart, do you know the way I would say it? People in their hearts know something is wrong, but we all suffer from like a flight and fight syndrome, don't we? And you would have seen this on the door. When there's aggro, some people freeze. Others, and they cower down. Other people run, and then there are fighters. And I've always been a fighter. The way I would put it, and I've said this before, if we're on the motorway and there's an accident up ahead and you're sitting in a motor, and young girls will resonate most with this because blokes stare at them, but you're sitting in a car and it's all stationary. And while you're sitting there, you know that guy is clocking you. You can't see him, but you know. And you turn quickly, don't you? And you clock them and they go, how is it you know? It's that intuition that we've all got. And I think people in their hearts, they know something is very, very, very wrong. Not only with COVID, but politically, and the fact that thousands and thousands of young men are being ferried in as they're taking every benefit of our pensioners, people that have built this country, and they're flooding every community. People in their hearts, they know it's wrong. And they've got this trench mentality where they're sitting there. And imagine being in the Somme, right? And the whistle's about to blow and you're all looking at each other down this trench. And everybody is waiting for the whistle to blow, but they're all waiting for the bloke next to them to go up first. Who's going to go over the top first and lead from the front? And it's going to be, I think, people like Robinson and people like yourself and people like me, people that have got a little bit about them, and we know what is happening. And I decided to lead from the front, and I don't give a fuck what they do to me. It's never been about me. I'm not bothered. I ain't frightened of them because I know when I die, it's not the end. It's the beginning. And I'll be remembered for all the right reasons. So that's going to be my legacy. I know what they're doing. They don't fucking frighten me. Fuck them.
Well, talking of being remembered, I'll certainly remember this conversation. And this interview escalated quite quickly, and it's been fascinating to say the least. And I could have sat here for a few more hours, but I've thoroughly enjoyed you giving me all your information and headspace and time. And I look forward to see what happens to you and your cause in the future.
Oh, bless you. Well, I can tell you now, there's more good in the world than bad. It depends what is going to happen. At what point people who think they've got a seat on the ark realise they haven't got a seat on the ark. And my future is their future as well. It's the future for their kids. And I had a very interesting conversation with a guy yesterday, right? So yesterday I was driving in Milton Keynes and I'm coming back to the shop and I noticed a guy because I notice things, and I noticed a guy in a lumberjack shirt with a little engineer's suitcase playing about with a lamppost. So I spun back round and I know what they're doing with the lamppost. And I sat by the side of the road and I waited for this guy to come out and I pulled him and I said, what are you doing with the lamppost, mate? He works for the council, right? He's an engineer, lamppost engineer. The little bit at the top is the repeater. Have a look at a guy called Mark Steele. Everything he's said is total truth. And if you think about it logically, the 5G, right? When did they put that up? When we was on lockdown. Who asked for 5G? No one. Is your phone any better since all these masks are up? No. Do you know why? Because it's not there for the internet.
What's it there for?
Graphene oxide and crap that's inside people. The frequencies are going to be pumped out. It's going to knock people over. There's your next pandemic. People need to wake up. They need to see it for what it is and listen to what people like Mark Steele have got to say. It's very, very real. It's very true. And it is going to happen. It's just a matter of when they flick it on. You wait and see. It will happen.
If I'm honest, until today, I've been quite ignorant to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And we all do that.
It's a big picture. It's a bigger picture.
And we're all guilty of sort of not paying certain things attention when we've got other things distracting us. So
it's been both a blessing and a curse because people have resonated to what I've said. When you are me, people reach out to you. And all these different people in all different fields of expertise have reached out to me and they've told me and they've furnished me with different bits. And it builds a whole picture. And it's fucking horrific. And unless we come together, people of all colours and all faiths, and stop these bastards, they are cutting the grass and there will be very few of us left in the coming years. And that is including the attack on farming as well, and the fishing industry. It's all interlinked. But you just have to see it. You have to have the eyes to see it. And it's both a blessing and a curse. It says in the Bible, only the truth will set us free, doesn't it? It's been both a blessing and a curse. And ignorance probably is bliss. Mm. It's not a nice world run by fucking awful people, and we need to stop them because if we don't, our kids are going to have no future.
Well, I'm certainly for a brighter future.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it because I'm a nut. I want these people arrested and locked up and held to account. I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. So that's what I'm going to push for right up until they come and get me, probably.
Well, good for you for having the stones to do it. And I'd imagine a lot of people will now jump over to your Twitter and follow your journey. I certainly will. And it's been a joy.
Yeah, and you, brother.
Thank you,
God bless.
Start again, please.
You have to have a little bit of fear to face it, and then your fear will be gone.
But you feel a bit of fear. Why do you feel a bit of fear? Tell Mama. Look at the
You
camera.
feel a bit of fear because it's really dangerous, and I ate
Look at me.
And I ate babies, and I ate babies before. And
Start again, please.
you have to have a little bit of fear to face it, and then your fear will be gone.
But you feel a bit of fear. Why do you feel a bit of fear? Tell Mama. Look at the
You
camera.
feel
Tell
a
Mama.
bit of fear because it's really dangerous, and I ate
Look at me.
And I ate babies, and I ate babies before, and I feel really weak about it, really weak. The first time when we ever done it with Papa, the first time when we were little done it, we had feared so much.
When you did what?
When we killed a baby, first time. And
You
we knew
killed the
about it.
babies.
Yes.
You
With-
yourself.
With Papa. Papa
Pap-
holding my hand. He helped me. But he told me to cut the baby's head off. But he forced me to. I couldn't.
He held your
so
hands?
He held my hand. Yes.
Like what? Show me.
So this is my hand on the knife. He put his big hand on, and he pushed my hand and then cut off the head, like that. And then when we got older, we got more used to it. And then when my mum found out about it, she understood. She told me that it's wrong to do this kind of stuff. So then me and Gabriel had still been used to it, but then we had understood that it's wrong.
So what we're gonna do? We're gonna protect other babies and
then we
children, huh?
And when you face
And
and
save
when
those children who are involved or who've been forced to be involved, right?
Yes, yes. When you face and James was in it. When you face the fear, you get less fear.
In 1974, inside a small art gallery in Naples, Italy, a woman stood completely still for 6 hours, letting a crowd do whatever they wanted with her. Next to her stood a table. On it, there were 72 simple objects. Some were comforting, like a rose, a feather, some perfume, but others were quite the opposite. These included things like a knife, scissors, a gun, and a bullet. There were no instructions for the audience, except one. They all had 6 hours to use the objects on her as they pleased. What happened next revealed one of the most shocking aspects of our human nature that most of us would rather not believe. This was Rhythm Zero, an art performance that nearly ended in murder. Many people thought Marina Abramovic was deranged. As a young woman, she often pushed the boundaries of physical and psychological endurance, and she tested the limits of human experience through sacrifice, vulnerability, and pain. In what was then Yugoslavia, she was born in 1946 to parents who were decorated Communist Party officials. Naturally, her childhood was strict, cold, and highly disciplined, shaping her in a secularist, materialist view. But, on the other hand, her grandmother was devoutly Serbian Orthodox, instilling Marina with spiritual values as well. It was from this contradiction that came an obsession, the spiritual nature of suffering. Between 1973 and 1974, Marina began a series of performance pieces that she called rhythms. Each piece tested her body, her mind, and her threshold for pain. In Rhythm 2, she took pills prescribed to psychotic patients to simulate a breakdown. In Rhythm 5, she lay inside a burning star until she lost consciousness from smoke inhalation. In Rhythm 10, she stabbed between her fingers with a knife until she drew blood. But the final piece of the series would be the most extreme. It would essentially reverse the formula. This time, the pain wouldn't come from within. It would come from people on the outside. She would become the passive object, and the audience would become active in imposing pain. Here, she would discover just how far they were willing to go. At precisely 8 p.m., Marina Abramovic stood in the middle of the gallery. She was dressed plainly. She did not speak. She did not move. She did not even make eye contact. But, in her own words, she said, "I am the object. During this time, I take full responsibility." For the first 2 hours, the crowd was hesitant. Viewers, unsure whether this was performance or provocation, circled her cautiously. Some placed a rose in her hand. Another kissed her cheek. A few moved her posture gently, shifting her like a mannequin. But, eventually, things escalated. By the 3rd hour, someone had cut off her shirt with a razor. Others followed, and soon her clothes were in tatters. Someone even cut her neck deeply enough to draw blood. Then they proceeded to drink it. Various people touched her inappropriately. Thorns from the rose were pressed into her stomach. But it didn't stop there. A man picked up the gun from the table and loaded it with a bullet. He then placed the weapon in Marina's hand, positioned it at her head, and wrapped her own finger around the trigger, slowly putting more and more pressure. Still, she didn't flinch, as that would contradict the whole point of the performance. Meanwhile, a fight had broken out between different factions of the audience, as some tried to wrestle the gun away. They essentially divided themselves in 2 groups, those that didn't want to harm Marina, and those that did. This sudden polarization wasn't random. It was the result of a powerful psychological shift taking place inside the room, a live demonstration of de-individuation. The performance quite literally paralleled infamous experiments like the Stanford Prison Experiment and Milgram's obedience study. In those experiments, ordinary people who were given roles and instructions committed acts that they never thought themselves capable of. In the realm of psychology, it's well known that while in groups, individuals can lose their sense of self-awareness. Accountability dissolves, empathy fades. Surrounded by others, your identity merges into a collective, one capable of cruelty under the right conditions. Here, you don't feel guilty for your actions, because now, your actions are no longer yours alone. With no clear rules, no punishment, and no consequences in Rhythm Zero, the audience had defaulted to violence because it became normalized as time passed. Psychologists call this informational social influence. This is where, in ambiguous situations, people look to others to determine the correct behavior and simply follow. The real horror of Rhythm Zero, though, wasn't that people committed violence. It was how easily they slipped into it. There was no explicit reward, nor were there any conditions, only an opportunity. After 6 hours, when Marina simply took a step forward, literally reclaiming her personhood, the crowd suddenly fled. It was as though a spell had been broken, and with it came a flood of recognition. The audience could no longer pretend. They were no longer interacting with just an object. After the audience had touched her, cut her, stripped her, they simply ran away, unable to face what they'd done. Each one of them had suddenly regained their sense of individuality and, when faced with the prospect of a confrontation, chose to escape. Later, Marina reflected on this chilling moment, saying, "If you leave it up to the audience, they can kill you." It's worth noting, Marina Abramovic wasn't the first to test the morality of a crowd. A decade earlier, in 1964, Yoko Ono did a similar performance, one that was called Cut Piece. She'd walked onto a stage in Kyoto, Japan, dressed modestly. She said nothing. She simply knelt down, placed a pair of scissors in front of her, and waited. One by one, people began to cut away pieces of her clothing. They snipped just the edges, small, polite cuts. But as time passed, their hesitation faded. The cuts grew deeper and more unhinged. Strangers began cutting away parts of her bra, her skirt, until eventually there was nearly nothing left to remove. Throughout all of this, Yoko didn't protest once. And in that silence, there was a kind of accusation. Much like Rhythm Zero, Cut Piece wasn't about a spectacle. It was about exposing human nature. Both Yoko and Marina placed their bodies into the hands of the audience, and both asked, "What would you do if no one stopped you?" Unsurprisingly, both received the same response. Marina Abramovic's case was, personally, a very hard read. Not because of the physical violence, but because it shows just how thin the line is between empathy and apathy. What's terrifying isn't just that people inflicted harm. It's how easily they convinced themselves it was acceptable. And these same people could be people we're around every day. Even worse, it could be our own selves. Today, Rhythm Zero is regarded as one of the most powerful performance pieces in art history, not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. It makes us think about what we're really capable of when the rules are removed. It also resonates now, in the 21st century, more than ever. In an age of internet anonymity, groupthink, and outrage mobs, de-individuation isn't just some far-removed phenomenon. No, it's online, it's cultural, and it's political. Rhythm Zero was a warning to everyone. It was a warning that violence thrives when thinking for yourself stops. Yes, Marina Abramovic survived Rhythm Zero, but it still changed her completely. She later admitted the experience aged her. Gray hair began appearing in her 20s, she claimed, after the performance. And it's not hard to see why. Yet still, despite all of this, she continued her performances. Nonetheless, out of all her art pieces, Rhythm Zero still remains one of the most chilling works in the history of performance art.
To relish in how they would glorify him, and treat him as if he were a god. Ian delighted in seeing how far they would let him go, in the things they would let him do because of who he was. In one instance, in March of 2007, Ian met up with a 16-year-old fan. After a brief conversation, Ian found out that this girl was a virgin. decided to take her virginity. He had her dress in a schoolgirl uniform and recorded him having sex with her without her knowledge, asking her throughout if she enjoyed being his underage, quote-unquote, slut. After he finished, he then urinated on her face and told her to drink it. A former music reviewer who had interviewed Watkins throughout his career spoke how apparent his attraction to minors was, simply by how he interacted with his fans after the shows. She described going backstage at one of their concerts and seeing young girls no older than 13 dressed provocatively in order to gain his attention, and how these young girls were desperate for him to notice them, stating they would do anything he wanted. In one instance, she recalled a group of young girls offering to worship Satan if he so much as asked. In an interview with Wales Online, she also said this: "I went on the fan forums and girls would say, 'I wish I was younger, he would like me more. He would like me more, and I wish I could give him anything he wanted.' They were about 16. People in the industry knew, they just didn't care. They knew this was an issue and they simply did nothing about it." Ian would brag to people about the young girls he would sleep with, telling escorts he had hired, as well as girlfriends, that he had slept with a 14-year-old while on tour once, then claiming it was a joke. And he had forced a 12-year-old to do cocaine before he had sex with her, again telling them that it had been a joke when they reacted negatively. He would also force his girlfriends to engage in role play and fantasy scenarios where they would talk about having children together and assaulting their children before killing them. Most of these events would happen after he successfully drugged the other party, which usually meant they wouldn't recall having such conversations. He also began filming all of his sexual encounters, most of the time without the other party's knowledge, as he found it fun to watch back and delighted in having filmed without the other's consent. This included times where he would be with minors, including babies, which is how we know about his interaction with a 16-year-old in March of 2007. While Ian's bandmates and the various people who were around him during that time maintained they had no idea and could not have known, that could obviously not have been the case, with how very blatant he was with his attraction to children, and how he would talk about it in front of the band and others. In the aforementioned fan forums, from years before he was arrested or publicly accused of these crimes, there are multiple posts talking about his attraction to minors. Again, these posts were made years before he was brought to trial and before any of these stories were publicly confirmed, meaning that his predilection was not a secret, especially not to the people surrounding the band. Here are some of the only remaining posts about his attraction to minors as recorded by Wales Online. Quote, "It's all true about him molesting kids. This poor excuse for a man disgusts me now. I used to know him and I'm ashamed to say, love him, till I found out the truth about him. If more of us came forward, we'd get this pedo where he belongs, away from kids for good. He used to frighten me with his talk about what he wants to do to babies, not just baby girls, baby boys too. I wish I'd done something when I had the chance. Boys or girls, Ian pays his sluts to let him fuck their kids. He even takes pics and vids of these kids. The stuff about him messing with kids is true too. Anyone he goes with who has kids, he's either done stuff to them or tried to. It happened to a friend, but he scared her into not doing anything about it because of the other illegal things they'd done together. Unfortunately, I concur. I know at least one skank who was so obsessed with Ian she actually gave him her young daughter. Use your imagination for the rest of the disgusting details. Ian is a kitty fiddler. He has child porn from Russia on his computer and on flash drives. Fact. Lots of girls and women who have sense don't want anything to do with him. The guy is a loser. Everyone has had a lucky escape from him. He's evil, just nasty, twisted, sick, and evil. Manipulative game player who spreads lies about everyone else to disguise the fact that he is the lying, sick, psychopathic fuck who needs locking up. Unfortunately, all the statements about mothers pimping their children out to Ian were true and were confirmed to have happened in 2 cases at the very least. But with the amount of touring Ian did across the globe and the amount of women who were utterly devoted to him, the real number of victims and people affected is most likely far greater than we expect. One of his ex-girlfriends, Joanna Magic, was dating Ian during this time and also found the amount of young girls that were consistently around the band to be strange. But she also thought it was more or less normal for the scene he was in. Before she had met Ian, she had been a call girl and was used to backstage situations. She never personally witnessed anything that she deemed inappropriate, as when she was around, those actions were kept at a minimum, but she still felt like the amount of underage girls that were consistently present was a bit alarming. Ian and her dated each other on and off from 2006 till 2008, when she broke up with him after he told her that he had previously had sex with multiple underage girls. Joanna was horrified by this confession and went to the police that same night, telling them what he had told her. They interviewed her and told her they would be investigating her claims. However, privately, they closed the case, feeling that she was either a jealous fan or a petty ex, trying to get revenge for him scorning her. They ignored her claims outright and thought a case was opened. It was shut without investigation that same night. She told Ian that she had gone to the police and informed them of what he had told her, which he found to be funny, because nothing came of this initial report on him. Ian seemed to become more confident in the fact that he would be able to continue to get away with abusing children as long as he wanted. The fact that the cops had so brazenly shut the case, sans investigation, made him all the more confident in his ability to get away with abusing others. And he was right, because it would be years before they actually looked into what he was doing, even after provided with evidence. A year after the report, Joanna and Ian met up again and would start having sex once more. At this point,
fact that police forces have had a 25% reduction in their government funding over the course of the last 5 years. And what that means is that we must focus our resources clearly on the priority areas, and serious and organised crime is a key priority for police and law enforcement, and we will continue to tackle these gangs.
The problem for the police is whatever message they send out, it's not clear the criminals are listening.
Okay. What's your family name then?
Barnes.
Barnes?
Yeah, B-A-R-N-E-S.
Jamie Barnes, here on the right, has smoked cannabis all his life. He got involved in dealing the drug in his teens.
You have 3 whites whilst in this police station.
He's standing in the custody suite at a police station in Essex after getting caught with dozens of cannabis plants in his flat.
No, you listen to me. I'm not here to cause any controversy. You should come to my flat.
In Essex after getting caught with dozens of cannabis plants in his flat.
No, you listen to me. I'm not here to cause any controversy. You should come to my flat, kicked my door off, damaged my property, took my
plants in his flat.
No, you listen to me. I'm not here to cause any controversy. You should come to my flat, kicked my door off, damaged my property, took my stuff. And
I come from Dagenham, and there's a saying in Dagenham that if one half of Dagenham's selling drugs, then the other half's taking them. Leaving school, it was a lot easier to go and get. I come from Dagenham, and there's a saying in Dagenham that if one half of Dagenham's selling drugs, then the other half's taking them. Leaving school, it was a lot easier to go. I come from Dagenham, and there's a saying in Dagenham that if one half of Dagenham's selling drugs, then the other half's taking them. Leaving school, it was a lot easier to go and get an ounce of weed than it was to go and get a job. It just security, money. I had nothing else. I still haven't got nothing else. I've got no qualifications, no trade under my belt. It was just security and money.
When police smashed down the door to his council flat, they found almost 50 cannabis plants. They were weeks away from being harvested and sold to a local drug dealer.
Make about 30 grand from that 48 plants. That was like 3 months' work.
And the caution is you do not have to say anything, but it might harm.
In his police interview, he had little choice but to admit the drugs were his. Again, there was no prison sentence. Earlier this year at Crown Court, he was given a suspended sentence and probation.
I worried more about the thieves than I did the police, to be honest. Once the police get involved, you know that it was my council flat I was doing it at, so I know that I knew that my flat was going to be taken off me, which it was. But that was my council flat gone. Now I'm back at my mum and dad's house. I was just gutted. I knew I was going to lose everything.
Do you regret doing it?
I do. I regret getting caught. I don't feel guilty for doing it. There's no element of that. I do to some aspects, yeah. Obviously, I got caught, but I mean, if I could, I don't feel guilty for doing it. There's no element of that. I do to some aspects, yeah. Obviously, I got caught, but I mean, if I could go back and do it again, I would have just done it smaller. That's all I tell myself now is, why didn't I just do it smaller?
With so much money at stake.
You should come to my flat.
Shall I speculate that Did they find something at your flat? Did they find something else at your flat, did they? Is that why maybe you went on the BBC Derbyshire show and you're now working for a paedophile ring? Is there any chance that maybe they were recruiting people at the same time as... let's just play this one for a little bit while we're... Well, actually, we'll just leave the... Because he's a rock star, baby, rock star. Get them hoes, get them things up my nose. He's a rock star, he's a rock star. Rock star, rock star.
It was 2014, September, and I can't remember how, but I found out that the police were looking for me. It might have been social services got in touch with me and said that you need to go to the police station and the children have been taken away from your mom. And I'm saying, why? Why they've been taken away from the mom? What's going on? And they won't tell me anything. I was kind of freaking out a little bit. Taken away from the mom, what's going on? Why they've been taken away from the mom? What's going on? And they won't tell me anything. I was kind of freaking out a little bit. They said, I'm the leader of a satanic sex cult paedophile ring, and there's 100+ involvement in this, including CAS, police, social services, school, and I'm the leader of this. And
what was it?
sat across the room.
Listen, I'm sorry, what's going to They revealed, admitted, whatever word you choose, that it was all made up. There is material related to the proceedings and more allegations still being posted online. Does that still affect you?
It does. That's there are consequences, and we've got to face these consequences. Who do this type of actions?
To make your motherfucking brain warm, a strange form, something kind of lyrical. Biggie the bastard, so that's kind of spiritual. Well, in God we trust, guns I bust, got that disgusting, suicide thumping, and do you know where you're going to? Do you like the things that I bring?
The first time when we ever done it with Papa, the first time when we little done it, we had feared so much.
When you did what?
When we killed the baby, first time and
You killed the babies?
Yes.
You yourself?
With Papa. Papa holding my hand, he helped me. But he told me to cut the baby's head off. But he forced me to. I couldn't.
He held your hands?
He held my hand, yes.
Like what? Show me.
So this is my hand on the knife. He put his big hand on, and he pushed my hand and then cut off the head, like that. And then when we got older, we got more used to it.
Yeah.
The point was, Clyde, that they didn't seem to give him any assistance in crying for some reason. That was what was noted, is that they could have done and assisted in the crying, but no, he just kept dry-faced little bit of pressure behind them.
I'm the leader of a satanic sex cult pedophile ring, and there's 100 plus involvement in this, including CAFCAS, police, social services.
Bless you all to death or repentance, or immediately stopping ASAP now. Well, years ago when it began, but immediately it's going to be stopped. We're getting there. Hold strong. All the good is coming. We are the wave. We are the raindrops that make up the rainbow of life and truth and good change.
Because it would be years before they actually looked into what he was doing, even after provided with evidence. A year less normal for the scene he was in. Before she had met Ian, she had been a call girl and was used to backstage situations. She never personally witnessed anything that she deemed inappropriate, as when she was around, those actions were kept at a minimum, but she still felt like the amount of underage girls that were consistently present was a bit alarming. Ian and her dated each other on and off from 2006 till 2008, when she broke up with him after he told her that he had previously had sex with multiple underage girls. Joanna was horrified by this confession and went to the police that same night, telling them what he had told her. They interviewed her and told her they would be investigating her claims. However, privately, they closed the case, feeling that she was either a jealous fan or a petty ex, trying to get revenge for him scorning her. They ignored her claims outright and thought a case was opened. It was shut without investigation that same night. She told Ian that she had gone to the police and informed them of what he had told her, which he found to be funny, because nothing came of this initial report on him. Ian seemed to become more confident in the fact that he would be able to continue to get away with abusing children as long as he wanted. The fact that the cops had so brazenly shut the case, sans investigation, made him all the more confident in his ability to get away with abusing others. And he was right, because it would be years before they actually looked into what he was doing, even after provided with evidence. A year after the report, Joanna and Ian met up again and would start having sex once more. At this point, Joanna was under the impression that the cops had done an investigation into Ian and they found nothing. She thought that she had been wrong, because obviously if the cops had been looking into it, he would have been arrested. Both Joanna and Ian had been using cocaine and other assorted drugs whilst together, and she thought that it was possible that Ian had just said he had had relations with children because of the drugs, or it had been an off-color joke that he had made that she took too seriously. Because of that, she apologized to him and stated that she had been way off base by reporting him to the police, and he had forgiven her, finding her report to be funny. 2 weeks after reconnecting, Ian showed her a video of a child being sexually abused, as well as photos of a separate child being assaulted. It was only then when she realized that she hadn't been wrong. Ian was actually a pedophile, and she had been right on reporting him when she had. The material he presented to her caused her to get ill, and she immediately went to the police once more, this time with her computer and her phone. She reported him as a pedophile and explained that he had sent her real images and videos of children being abused, but the cops refused to so much as examine her devices. They turned her away, stating once again she was an obsessed fan or a stalker and was determined to hurt his reputation. She then tried to get in contact with Ian's mother, Elaine Davies. She wrote to her, letting her know about her son's actions, the things he had sent her, and the things he was currently doing while on tour. Elaine brushed off the letter, and Joanna was accused of harassment once again. She was then taken in by the police for questioning. Oddly enough, they thought her claiming he was a pedophile was more worthy of condemnation and investigation than him being one. She brought up once more that Ian had sent her pornographic images of children and begged them to look at her devices and evidence, which they of course refused to do. Instead, they told her she needed to stop contacting Ian and his family because they could press charges. But that didn't happen. At that point, Joanna was well aware of what Ian was doing and knew he wouldn't stop. All the times he had told her about how he could get girls to do whatever he wanted, how people worshipped him and would give them their children if he asked, she realized that he wasn't just doing things he was saying because he was high. Those were real things he had done and would continue to do, and she felt like she was the only person who could stop him, seeing as the cops didn't care. So she decided that she would do the work that the cops were refusing to do, and go out of her way to get undeniable proof. She knew if she didn't do it, he would hurt more kids, and she couldn't live with herself if that happened. In 2011, her and Ian began talking again, and he once again tried to share inappropriate material of children being assaulted to her, this time by him. Instead of reacting with disgust and contempt as she had before, Joanna went along with it, saying she was intrigued. She did so to gain his trust, to get him to reveal more of what he had done to her, and so she could get more evidence to stop him from doing this to anyone else. He began to send her more and more material, and she archived it. After a short while, she sent an email to the Association of Chief Police Officers, talking about what Ian was doing, specifically noting that he was raping one particular child on a very regular basis, with his mother's approval and help. In the email, she stated, "I've gained his trust by agreeing to a lot of disgusting things to get whatever is needed to bring him to justice. However, nothing was done at this time either." And she was once again going to be brushed off by the police. Clear if the email was ever read at all. Joanna didn't stop there. She knew the identity of one of the children whose mother was letting Ian abuse them, so she contacted the father in February of 2012 with the hopes that he could stop the abuse himself. A month later, she reached out once more to the South Wales police, this time regarding a Skype conversation she had with Watkins, where he once again stated his proclivity to assaulting children and how often he would do so, and like every time before, she was brushed aside by the police. It wasn't until August of that year, 6 months later, that the police finally took action, raiding the Watkins home and taking all of his electronic devices, including his laptop, the password of which was, quote-unquote, "I fuck kids," with a Z. Thousands of images of porn were found, including videos and images featuring children, babies, and animals. Some of these materials were made by Ian, others were not. 2 women, whose identities have remained sealed to protect the victims, were also charged alongside him for taking part in the assault and rape of their own children at his behest. They too appeared on these films and videos and willingly took part in these assaults. Despite the charges against him, Ian maintained that he was innocent and that everything was a misunderstanding publicly, telling his mother and his stepfather that he would be fighting the charges as much as possible. He put out statements declaring his innocence and saying that he would get his day in court. His mother and stepfather stood by him, and his bandmates made no comment. However, when the day arrived, Ian immediately pled guilty to the charges against him, admitting to what he had done. What follows is the sentencing report from the case. For ease of understanding, when we refer to people as B and P, those are 2 women who assisted Ian in his crimes. Victims in this report go by 2 initials, as to maintain their anonymity, but everyone else is named in full. There are parts of this report that have been redacted for being too graphic, and we will not be linking to the full report, although it is available online for the public's consumption. Those who have appeared in these courts at the bar or on the bench over many years see and hear a large number of horrific cases. This case, however, breaks new ground. Any decent person looking at and listening to the material here will experience shock, revulsion, anger, and incredulity. What you 3 did plumbed new depths of depravity. You, Watkins, achieved fame and success as a lead singer of Lost Prophets. You had many fawning fans. These fans gave you power. You knew you could use that power to induce young female fans to help satisfy your apparently insatiable lust and take part in the sexual abuse of their young children. Away from the highlights of your public performances lay a dark and sinister side. What is the background? Count 18 dates back to March 2007. You met TT after a Lost Prophets concert when she was a 16-year-old virgin. The prospect of taking her virginity excited you. You got her to dress in a schoolgirl's outfit, and you videoed her and you having oral, vaginal, and anal sex. You asked her whether she enjoyed being your underage slut. At the end, you urinated on her face and told her to drink it. That gives some insight into your attitude to young females at that time, over 5 years before the counts relating to B and P. Count 19 dates back to August 2008. The girl KJ was another fan aged 16. You videoed her having oral sex with you. She is to be seen snorting white powder, which you told her was cocaine. The taking of drugs linked with your sexual activities is a recurring theme. Count 31 relates to about 90 indecent photos of children. They include 45 at level 4 and 2 at level 5. The age range of the children is from 2 to 14 years. Count 32 involves images and videos of extreme pornography. There are 22 images of bestiality, including oral and vaginal sex with dogs. Watkins and B. You, B, were only 19 when you met Watkins in late 2011. The communications between the two of you in March and April 2012 are seriously disturbing. That you were manipulated by Watkins may be obvious, but you were a mother, your infant was only 10 months old. A mother naturally loves, protects, shields, nurtures, and cherishes. Your infant would have trusted you implicitly. You totally betrayed that trust. So what did you do? You had detailed discussions with Watkins about the sexual acts to which the two of you were going to subject your infant. You told the police you met up with Watkins at the Copthorne Hotel in Cardiff. On the 21st of March, Watkins says, "Come down this weekend and we can fuck him up again." You text back saying, "Tell me if you want to get your dick in our boy." You had previously referred to getting your boy high on ice, i.e. methamphetamine. This is what led you up to the session at the K West Hotel in London on the night of the 2nd and 3rd of April, recorded on the video. What did you do? You presented your baby to him so he could try to rape him. You can be heard and seen encouraging him. Could there be a greater betrayal? And then what did you do? The planning and graphic detail are bad enough. The videoing of what you were both doing is an aggravating factor. The enjoyment from what you can be seen to derive from what you were doing is both sickening and incomprehensible. What happened after this? On the 24th of May, you send Watkins a message saying the boy is ready to be abused. On the 2nd of August, his message is, quote, "To be honest though, I think we have gone easy on him so far. Time to teach him and make him learn to love it." The evidence indicates that you met at the Maldron Hotel in Cardiff. Then on the 9th of November, you sent Watkins a photo of you licking your son's penis. Counts 4 to 7 relate to this. In all, it is a dreadful catalog of abuse of a previously innocent boy to satisfy your own interest and lust. Watkins and P. You, P, were a little older than B. You are now 24. Your communications with Watkins start in August 2012. It is not long before the communication turned to child sex abuse. There was talk of moving in together. Watkins said, "If you belong to me, so does your baby." You responded, "Understandable. A mother-daughter slave duo worshiping you." Watkins said, "That's all she will know, a life of filth." P said, "The good thing about babies is put anything near their mouths and they start sucking on it." She went on to talk about both her and her baby sharing Watkins' penis with their tongues. The subsequent communications planning even more depraved activities with this little girl, including forcing her to engage in sex with animals and how to take drugs, defy belief. This P was your own flesh and blood that you were talking about. Watkins, you referred to the little girl as, quote, "my little fuck toy," unquote, and that sums up how you regarded her. Not as a human being, but simply as a sexual object there for your pleasure. You, Watkins, then said that you could not wait to get mother and daughter taking crack cocaine. You spoke of whoring her out to fat old men who would pay thousands. You went on, quote, "She needs to know mommy and daddy don't love her, and she is just there to make us come," unquote. You spoke of torturing her for fun. Count 11 to 13 relate to the taking of photos by P of the little girl's genitalia and sending them to you, Watkins. You have both pleaded guilty to conspiring to rape the little girl and to conspiring sexually to assault her. The evidence is compelling that UP took your infant to meet up with Watkins at the Travel Lodge in Carpphilly on the 2nd of October and/or at the Radisson in Cardiff on the 23rd of October. What happened there is not recorded. You for a long time lied saying you had never met up with him. You now say you did, but you left your baby with someone else. The evidence, to me, is compelling that you took your baby, but I do not deal with you on that basis, as I bear in mind you have been charged with conspiracy rather than the completed offenses. Let there be no mistake, however, this plea means you accept that the two of you agreed that the little girl should be raped by Watkins, and you both intended that that should take place. You, Watkins, initiated and orchestrated the appalling abuse, but you, P, betrayed your daughter for your own selfish ends. First, Watkins, you spoke to the author of your desire to shock and your craving to push sexual boundaries. This craving was fueled by your use of cocaine and methamphetamine, which increased your sexual aggression. You spoke of not knowing to what extremes you would have gone to but for your arrest. It is difficult to imagine anything much worse. The author concludes, quote, "Mr. Watkins presents a high risk of causing serious sexual, physical, emotional, and psychological harm to children, both male and female, and to women, specifically his female sexual partners," unquote. The author also says, quote, "It is also my assessment that the child victims in this case appear to be coincidental to his need to dominate and to test out the extent of which his sexual partners would collude and participate in his sexual interests." Unquote. Psychiatric report. Miss O'Neill told me on the last occasion they had a psychiatric report but needed updating in the light of the changes in plea. There has been put before me a short report from Dr. Huckle prepared after visits to Watkins in September and October. It refers to a report by a psychologist, S. Van Soyek. It does not deal with the issue of dangerousness, and Miss O'Neill specifically does not ask for any adjournment to obtain further such evidence. I bear in mind a number of factors. 1. The facts of these offenses against these babies are enormously serious. 2. The offending dates back to 2007. 3. The delight that Watkins evidently has when engaging in the most terrible offenses involving tiny children. 4. His need to dominate any sexual partner and his corruptive influence over young females. 5. The interest of drugs in combination with sexual assaults. 6. The interest in extreme pornography. 7. The almost complete lack of remorse. In this last respect, the evidence of the phone conversations after the guilty pleas on the last occasion is enlightening. They're a matter of concern. One of the passwords you chose, which needed the assistance of GCHQ to break, was "I fuck kids." I have no hesitation in concluding that there is a significant risk to the public, in particular to young females and children, of serious harm occasioned by the commission by you of further specified offenses. That risk is high. There is a psychiatric report from Dr. McFarlane dated 13/12/13. There is a reference in that report to your infatuation with Watkins and to his strong influence in your drug taking with him. The future risk of you reoffending in similar fashion is assessed as medium. It is not considered that you were suffering from mental illness at the material time. The author's assessment is that you pose a high risk of causing serious harm. The specific risk would be failure to protect children from others and sexual abuse by you. It is said, however, that you appear genuinely devastated for the harm you have caused your child and how his future will be affected. P. I have read the report from clinical psychologist Dr. Kress, dated the 1st of December 2013. That was prepared at a time when you were still protesting your innocence of these offenses. There is an addendum dated the 17th of December. The psychologist concluded that you have a mixed personality disorder. She also considered it likely that you used your daughter as a tool to secure Watkins' acceptance of you. She considered that in the long term, you would benefit from an opportunity to engage in psychological interventions targeting your personality disorder and sexual offending. The risk of you reoffending in a similar manner is assessed as relatively low. The assessment given is that you pose a medium risk of harm to children based on your current behavior and the fact that you no longer have access to your own child, who is most at risk. Mitigation. Watkins, you are age 36 with no previous convictions. Your mitigation is your late plea. I also take into account that through your offenses over the last 6 years, you have lost a valued position within your group. I also take note of the letters written on your behalf from those who know a different side of you. B. You are aged 21. You have one previous conviction from an offense of fraud for which you have received a suspended sentence. Apart from that, you are of good character. Your principal mitigation is the fact that you pleaded guilty at the first reasonable opportunity. There appears to be genuine remorse. P. You are aged 25 and are of previous good character. You have the mitigation of a late plea. There are signs of remorse. You, B, and you, P, will hopefully mature and on your eventual release will steer clear of the corrupting influence of the likes of your Watkins. I consider that in your case B and your case P, I can treat you as falling just short of the threshold necessary for dangerousness, and determinate sentences are appropriate. With Watkins, that is not the case. The sentencing guidelines factors indicating greater culpability are the planning and its graphic detail, the deliberate targeting of a vulnerable victim, the commission of the offenses by two people acting together, the abuse of trust in the cases of B and P, the abuse of power in the case of Watkins, the commission of offenses whilst under the influence of drugs. Factors indicating greater harm are the fact that a baby is particularly vulnerable in the case of Watkins, more than one victim, repeated assaults on the same victim, additional degradation through taking photos or videos as part of the offending. What is the position in relation to any harm suffered by these babies? babies. While it is right to say there is no evidence of any residual physical harm, it is not possible to say what the psychological harm may have been suffered or may be suffered in the future. As is pointed out in paragraph 2.10 of the PSR, for B, given his very young age, it is unclear what effect the abuse would have had on him. However, this child is likely to have lifelong psychological difficulties coming to terms with the enormity of what has happened to him. Despite him being placed in long-term foster care, he will eventually learn the truth of his childhood and the abuse he was subjected to, the effects of which are significant, and we cannot and should not underestimate the effect this will have on him for the rest of his life. The statement from those who are now responsible for his care is very telling in this context. One obvious immediate consequence is that they will be deprived of the love and care of their natural mother. There is, however, disturbing evidence in respect of your daughter, P. When her hair was analyzed, it showed that she has been exposed to methamphetamine. It is said on behalf of P that she was only exposed to methamphetamine when in company with Watkins, but it is urged that P might have gone back to her baby and somehow exposed her to it. It is not an issue which requires determination. For rape of a child under 13, where there is abuse of trust or more than one offender acting together, the suggested range is 11 to 17 years with a starting point of 13 years. The same applies to assault by penetration of a child under 13. The guideline recognizes that starting points and ranges are not rigid and that the circumstances of a particular case may justify going outside the guideline. This is a case where, in my judgment, such departure would be justified. That is because of the horrific nature of the offenses involving these babies and the other factors in respect of culpability and harm of which I have referred. The suggested range for sexual assault of a child under 13 is 1 to 4 years with a starting point of 2 years. The range and starting point for taking indecent photographs and distributing them varies according to the level and volume. In your case, Watkins, I have to consider the remaining counts in totality. On counts 13, 17, 18, 19, 30, and 31, there will be concurrent sentences of 12 months. I am satisfied that you are a deeply corrupting influence. You are highly manipulative, you are a sexual predator, and are dangerous. The public, and in particular young females and children, need protection from you. On one view, this is a case which would justify a denunciatory, indeterminate sentence, as in Saunders 2013 EWCA 1027. I bear in mind that such a sentence is one of last resort. The alternative is a very long, extended sentence. In my judgment, justice and protection of the public can and should be achieved by such a very long sentence. Your total sentence is therefore one of 35 years. In your case, that means you will have to serve 2/3 of the custodial term before you can be considered for release by the parole board. If you are released, you will remain on license for the extended period.
So, Mark, just remind us about this case.
Well, it was a truly shocking case. Here we had a global rock star adored by millions who privately was carrying out the most appalling abuse. In fact, in the end, it was a drugs raid that led to his arrest, but really drugs offences were the very least of it. I remember being at his first court appearance in Magistrates Court, and what we didn't know then, but we do know now, is that there was this timeline of nearly 4 years of opportunities missed by police to get him in the dock rather sooner and to end what the judge who finally sentenced him to 29 years in jail called behaviour that was plumbing the depths of depravity. There were clanging alarm bells surrounding Ian Watkins. This IPCC report today highlights the fact that for so long the police turned a deaf ear to them.
So tell us more about these complaints. How many were there and what were they saying?
Well, I've got a copy of the report here, and it pinpoints what it calls major shortcomings in terms of the police investigation, if you can call it that, certainly for over a 4-year period into Ian Watkins. The main complainant was Joanne Majelix. Now, she went to police repeatedly. First of all, in 2008, she took said she, on her mobile phone, she had a message from Ian Watkins saying he wanted to abuse children. Now, the report finds the police didn't look at that phone. They simply didn't believe Joanne Majelix. They didn't think she was a credible witness. But in fact, there were 6 people who went to police with concerns about Ian Watkins, and this report finds that there were 8 reports, there were 3 intelligence logs, but actually 0 interviews with Ian Watkins. He wasn't arrested over that period, he wasn't questioned, he wasn't asked what he thought about the allegations. Let's hear now from the Commissioner who compiled today's report.
Bias, whether unconscious or conscious, has no place in modern policing. When someone comes forward with such a serious allegation, or indeed any allegation or report, it really shouldn't matter what they look like, who they are, what their lifestyle is, what they do. What's really important is what are they saying. And it's really important that's taken seriously and that some investigative work is done to see if there's any independent evidence to corroborate what they're saying.
So, Marks, what has been the police response to this?
Sorry, in a word. South Wales Police say that they didn't listen, they didn't properly investigate the complaints over that time, and that they are truly sorry. Now, there was one detective sergeant who faced a disciplinary hearing for gross misconduct. He was cleared at that hearing. Separately from this, there was also an IPCC report that came out last week into South Yorkshire Police, and that report criticised their inaction in terms of investigating Ian Watkins, because Joanne Majelix went to them too. And that report found that there were 3 officers who would have faced disciplinary action at South Yorkshire. They would have, except that they've since retired, so they can't. And just going back to this report into South Wales Police, I'm just looking at the timeline of events, the summary of the complaints about him, and it says on various points, no action taken, no action taken, no action taken. Well, finally, the police did take action, but 4 years late.
Mark, thank you for updating us on that. Well, we can now speak to Michael Walkine QC. He defended Joanne Majelix. Thank you ever so much for coming in. I know that Joanne didn't feel well enough to come and talk to us today, but I know you've spoken to her about this report. What's her reaction to it?
Degree of satisfaction. She's disappointed on a personal level. There's no apology to her. It's probably time for South Wales to respond with an apology which shows their integrity and to speak with grace about how they disregarded her. But it brings back these events, not as if she forgets them ever. Every day she tells me she cries for no obvious reason. Actually, the reasons are obvious. She was disregarded. She was someone who was defamed, written off as because of her less than conventional lifestyle. Maybe it wasn't a steady lifestyle.
She was a former sex worker.
Yes, she was a former sex worker, and so what? And she was wrongly accused during the trial of having been sectioned, mental health section. That wasn't true. And so to face a jury with a person who comes from that sort of background was difficult. Their starting point might also be to disbelieve her. But police, who had the opportunity to look for corroboration of her claims, didn't do anything. They didn't have the wit to examine her phone. On her phone was a text with a wish list of abuse from Ian Watkins.
Do you know why? Because she was in a sort of on-off relationship with Ian Watkins,
Yes.
wasn't she? She'd got this text message from him, which, as you say, clearly outlined his desire to abuse children.
Yes.
She went to the police. Why didn't they look at that phone then?
She went to the police with a laptop. One police officer said that he or she wasn't qualified to examine a laptop. So whereas you and I can look at a laptop and be alarmed and at least interested when we see a picture of an underage child, he or she, I forget, I think it was one, wasn't interested enough because she wasn't qualified. So Joanne went back again and again and again, 4 times in all. So they didn't ask about her phone, but here was the laptop. And she said, I've got a picture that he sent me. They denied in due course that it was an underage child. It was a child of 4 or 5. During the trial, they claimed it was a child over the age of consent. They were wrong because Joanne didn't count for them.
In the report, it talks about, doesn't it, that they wanted to find the right type of complainant to come along. That's what the IPCC commissioner says, because of her unconventional lifestyle. Do you think this happens in other cases?
It must do. It must do. So in the same way that police now are told to really listen to young children who claim they've been abused by groups of men, what's the difference? So she comes from an unsteady background, not a conventional background. She's not posh. Actually, my interest in this case began when I saw After Watkins' conviction, she was interviewed on television. She wasn't glorifying in the conviction. She was disturbed, and it was weighing on her. What could she have done more to stop people, to stop children being in danger? Well, she couldn't have done much more than going to that police station 4 times armed with a computer, emailing the Association of Chief Police Officers, and telling everyone. In fact, on one occasion, she said to people who had the care authorities had the duty to look after children, she said to them, if he does something again, it will be on your head, not mine. She was warning them. She was right. She was telling the truth from the start and all the way through.
When looking at this case, it's clear that the police, specifically the South Wales Police Force, allowed these assaults to happen by refusing to take Joanna Magic's claim seriously. She provided years of proof, statements, and various pieces of evidence. However, they simply refused to listen, and they let these children continue to be assaulted. As news spread about the things Ian had done, and more people were coming forward talking about their stories and how they always felt like something was off with him, Joanna came forward and spoke about and how she had spent the past 5 years working to put Ian behind bars. All the while, no one listened to her. She called out Ian's bandmates, who she believed knew. She called out Ian's mother, who she wrote to about the crimes, and more importantly, she called out the various police departments who brushed her off and refused to do their jobs. And while privately, the police thanked her for the amount of work she did and the evidence she had gathered through her own investigation, they publicly ignored her questions and statements, saying that the investigation was done on their own and that there hadn't been any wrongdoing. And seemingly out of spite, the police force that she had been criticizing for mishandling this case then arrested her, stating that she had knowingly and willingly owned images of child porn and, in essence, was just as bad as Ian. Joanna had spent the last 5 years trying to put a pedophile behind bars, doing the work that the police force refused to do, and putting her own mental and physical well-being in jeopardy to do so. And after all of that, because she spoke out about the police and how they ignored these crimes, they charged her for possession of owning child pornography and being a pedophile herself. For 2 years, Joanna fought against these charges and railed against the prosecution and the police force. The prosecution tried to argue that because of Joanna engaging with Ian at all, she had willingly participated in the production and distribution, even though she had records of herself telling the police why she was engaging in that way. She was eventually found not guilty because of the amount of times she had recorded herself trying to stop him, but felt horrified to have to defend herself against these claims. The entire trial and the fact that she was charged in this case is absolutely appalling, and the lack of responsibility from the Crown Prosecution Services and the police is astounding. Joanna is a hero, and it's a fact that without her, Ian would have hurt even more people, seeing as the cops and his bandmates didn't care to do their jobs.
The prosecution portrayed her as a disgruntled ex-partner. She told the court she acted to help bring him to justice, and the jury believed her.
I feel like it's been 7 years, 7-year fight against him, against police, and now against the CPS and against this, I'd call it a malicious prosecution.
As far back as 2008, Joanne Magellix had warned police and social services that the former singer in the band The Lost Prophets posed a threat to very young children. But her concerns weren't acted on. Last year, Ian Watkins was sentenced to 35 years after admitting the attempted rape of a baby and other serious sexual offences against children.
Ian Watkins is by far the worst pedophile in the music industry. This man wasn't operating in the shadows. What he was doing wasn't secretive. The people around him knew about this and chose to do nothing. While they try to maintain otherwise now, enough people have come forward with their stories that knew the truth. And let this serve as a reminder. The world is not always just, but you should always seek justice. Be like Joanna. Thank you for watching this video. If you like true crime content, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to be updated when we release new videos. We have at least one video every week, Wednesday at 10 a.m. We will see you next time and stay safe.
Today's report highlights a number of failings in which information about Ian Watkins was investigated between 2008 and 2012, which the force entirely accepts and regrets. South Wales Police failed to listen and properly investigate information about Watkins' offending behaviour. For this, we are truly sorry.
Yeah, stop brainwashing the children.
Yeah, leave them alone. Let them kids. Yeah. They make their own minds about if they want to follow a religion as they get older.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's mental. Yeah, Banks is in the side chat saying, hello, who the fuck is that?
How do you know that? He said, I dropped my fucking sandwich, mother. I couldn't believe it come out of her mouth.
That just reminded me soon, Banksy, even though it's nothing to do with Banksy. Manny Cinder has got a live set up for a few days, and the title is Raj has been arrested for Bitcoin fraud. I take it he doesn't mean our Raj. He must mean Raj Kundra, like the Bollywood actor. He's been arrested for that. So it's a little. Is that a little bit of clickbait going on there?
I think so. Yeah.
Being
yeah.
a Bollywood fan, I thought obviously.
Well, Manny is a shameless clickbaiter. So
he is, yeah. And if I'd seen that title, Moon, because I don't know nothing about Bollywood, I'd have straight away I'd have thought Raj. You know.
Yeah, because somebody had commented already, and they were like, "Oh my god," you know. And I thought, no, he means Raj Kundra, surely.
And he said it that I don't. The speaker said it as though it was a thing that often happened, when in fact it's never happened before. It literally, I can't remember it happening.
Once bacon sold like cigarettes with grim cancer warnings and unbranded packs.
Oh, please.
He says that meat and dairy should come with health warnings, citing bacon in particular because it is carcinogenic. What a load of crap. See what I mean?
Yeah.
They're fucking mad, these people.
I watched a video where they, years ago, this was about 15 years ago, where it showed you them putting, I think it was aspartams or something like that into
aspartame, yeah.
to be able to roll up the cut-offs of bacon and stuff and just put it all together again to make it look like it's a joint, and then they start cutting it again. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but some places when you buy their bacon, like cheap places, like say you bought cheap bacon from Iceland's and you fry it, you'll see little white stuff come off. That's what it is.
Oh yeah.
I've never ate bacon, you know.
I always thought it was the salt.
Yeah.
No, not this stuff, no. And you can see the way that it's rolled as well, man. Because you know, normally with bacon, you'll get the little section and then you'll get the bigger section. Where you find that the bigger section suddenly got a new sort of like smaller section rolled around it. And you're like, yeah, you've rolled this together. Yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah. Bit like them joints that you get ready prepared and you just put them in the oven.
And multiple times, either side of this in November last year, either side of this, we have, how many times has she said how disgusting, oh, she couldn't eat meat because she can't, because of the animals, she can't do it. It's like, oh no. And then she's just the most craziest, fucking horrible, fake, dangerous, abusive individual. Like, it's just unreal. When you were describing me to her originally, Kaylee, I just did not realise the levels that somebody could actually continue on, continue into that on a continuous basis. But just also, it's really trying to refine this one thing I've got to play you. I'm going to stop now and go and record because Ricky's been on an hour with Luke. Well, I don't know how long he's been on there, but Rick Easy's been on, so I'm going to go catch up with that. But and Helen's in the chat and stuff. So, but yeah, just one real last clip of this. I'll play this again. Actually, I'm going to play it from the start again. Well, from this bit again next time and explain this again, just to reiterate that this is just so unacceptable. Hypocrisy. She claims to be an atheist, and this is why she seems to be able to think she can get away with it. I'm not cussing all atheists, bless them. You know, if they don't believe there's a higher spirit and stuff, but it's just mental. It's just totally deranged. And so yeah, this the clip, the main bit for Jupiter here. This is just so sick.
Mental.
It was the truth not good enough? At that point, you have to question things. The moment you don't, you're literally highlighting that you have a narrative or the people behind you have a narrative. It is that simple. Now, I wouldn't have fucking had an issue with Danny or whatever if they wouldn't have been telling ridiculous lies or whatever. He was questioned on the lies. It didn't fucking the evidence which they said at the time, the defence of people from people like Victoria West, the defence for people around it like AJ Tyler or whatever, just doesn't fit once you know the truth.
And I was quite surprised. I mean,
it is that simple for me. So we'll see what I can get out of this before they fucking make it private.
Oh, fuck off! You fucking recorded that.
When Patterson was. He's going to get out of it what he can before you put it private. Why does everybody care what mine and your opinions are?
Because he loves to argue.
If you don't agree with it, move on.
Danny's saying, I told Den 4 years ago, then 3 people have got in trouble over this case and could be put onto a sex register list.
Yeah.
He says that's the biggest lie from Danny Jones.
Yeah, but I don't care one way or the other.
No.
Neither do I.
Even if Danny did lie, I don't care. What does that mean to me?
Yeah, but it's the same with Kaylee when she comes in with all this shit. No one cares.
Yeah.
Honest to fuck, no one gives a shit. Why do we have to give a shit?
We don't. And that's what he can't understand.
Mm.
Let's see what else he says.
In prison.
Well, the people behind you have a narrative. It is that simple. Now, I wouldn't have fucking had an issue with Danny or whatever if they wouldn't have been telling ridiculous lies or whatever. He was questioned on the lies. It didn't fucking the evidence which they said at the time, the defence of people from people like Victoria West, the defence for people around it like AJ Tyler or whatever, just doesn't fit once you know the truth.
And I was quite surprised. I mean,
it is that simple for me. So we'll see what I can get out of this before they fucking make it private.
oh, fuck off! You fucking recorded that.
When Patterson was. He's going to get out of it what he can before you put it private. Why does everybody care what mine and your opinions are?
Because he loves to argue.
If you don't agree with it, move on.
Danny's saying, I told Den 4 years ago, then 3 people have got in trouble over this case and could be put onto a sex register list.
Yeah.
He says that's the biggest lie from Danny Jones.
Yeah, but I don't care one way or the other.
No.
Neither do I.
Even if Danny did lie, I don't care. What does that mean to me?
Yeah, but it's the same with Kaylee when she comes in with all this shit. No one cares.
Yeah.
Honest to fuck, no one gives a shit. Why do we have to give a shit?
We don't. And that's what he can't understand.
Mm.
Let's see what else he says.
In prison.
I was playing your stream.
I found that very strange behaviour. But I find a lot of their behaviour very odd. But because they can't stop tackling people in their prison.
What I will say is,
look at that fucking stream. What is he showing?
All this shit was pushed, propagated on Wake Up UK, formerly known as Right Unity. Now that's
is his fucking obsession with Jason coming to the fore now?
No.
Doesn't he realise all I was doing last night was basically taking the piss out of Jake and Kaylee
Yeah.
for their nuttiness?
That's why I said Wendy's reading an article and Jane has to come and make it all about Danny Jones.
Yeah, it's weird. And his obsession with Jason needs to stop. Jason ain't been around for ages.
No.
We've heard it time and time. The thing is, we've all heard what he has got to say about Jason, and we don't care.
Exactly.
When's he going to get over the fact we don't care? It's mental.
They've given their side. Jason's given his side.
Already been seen. People are fully aware that scam was pushed on that platform. They was pulling along this case with that scam. Now, to me, the case has not been of importance as to why we was trying to have discussion with these people and expose them for the scam. That's it. The scam, the flag, the bullshit, the grift, the fucking bullshit shares, which kept fluctuating from shares to donations.
So how tragically more than embarrassing, like so shameful on all fronts. And one of them just keeps lighting up with her Zippo lighter. You can hear her. She's so anxious way back then. But why do they just keep trying to front it? Well, I mean, it's just denial, isn't it? You can tell they're just it's just so obnoxious. Same as these lot in here. You know? It's just pathetic. It's just so fake. It's just you don't care. It's just unreal. I mean, obviously, I got on face value, we're taking it that those women aren't, well, at least Michaela seemingly isn't directly involved in the paedophile cult, but very good reason to believe that Valerie and Wendy are, or Wendy's being compromised through another thing. But yeah, Valerie's just so deranged. But yeah, we just we're just going to end the stream now.
Right, leave Helen alone now, Katie. Go away. Go and do your own live stream. Stop using Easy's fucking side chats.
Yeah, I don't want to get involved with any fucking hoaxed or anything.
Just stop it now.
Fucking hoaxed or anything.
Using Easy's fucking side chats.
Yeah, I don't want to get involved with any fucking hoaxed or anything.